Chapter 1789. Let's go take a look. In an instant, the three of them made their move and rushed towards the Sea of Bones. They weren't the only ones. The remaining warriors in the forest also rushed towards the Sea of Bones. They wanted to see what was going on. Otherwise they wouldn't be at ease. When they arrived near the Sea of Bones again, everyone was stunned. They were shocked by the scene before them. The terrifying lightning was like a heavenly tribulation, and could even kill mighty figures. And in the center of the Sea of Bones, there were phantom spirits floating around, making one's scalp tingle. The terrifying aura made one tremble, as if some peerless demon king had awakened. It had an ancient desolate aura. What a terrifying scene. Could it be that those ancient creatures have come back to life? Gu Santong's expression was solemn. It's fresh blood. Lu Mingyue's face was pale. As a woman, she was more observant, so she noticed that the surrounding fresh blood was being absorbed into the Sea of Bones. After this reminder, Lin Xian and Gu Santong also noticed this, and their expressions turned solemn. Thinking about it, it was because of the previous battle that the Sea of Bones had undergone such a shocking change. And this time, the battle was even more terrifying than the previous one, and more blood had been spilled. If all the fresh blood was absorbed by the Sea of Bones, who knew what would happen? More and more dark clouds appeared in the sky as if they were about to fall. The aura from the Sea of Bones became more and more terrifying. Even top young prodigies like Lin Xian, Gu Santong, the Alcate Sage, and Yi Wudao couldn't take it. And the mighty figures whose cultivations had been suppressed also looked solemn as they stared ahead. Boom boom boom. Just then, the Sea of Bones in front of them made a low sound. Is that the skeleton giant coming out? The surrounding kings were shocked. They couldn't forget the scene from last time, when the terrifying skeleton giant was like a demon. With a wave of its hand, it could easily crush any king below the level of mighty figure. Many were even prepared to run. But in the next moment they were stunned. Because what was coming out wasn't the skeleton giant from before, but an extremely terrifying aura. Then, a huge skeleton palace slowly rose from the bottom of the Sea of Bones, floating in the sky. What's going on? Everyone was stunned at this moment. They looked at the scene in front of them, not daring to believe it. It was as if they were dreaming. Was it all an illusion? Lin Xian was also shocked. He activated the great dragon sword soul in his body, and a mysterious light flickered in his eyes. But in the next moment, his frown deepened. Regardless of whether it was the great dragon sword soul or the heavenly secret god eye, both of them could break through illusions. As long as it was an illusion, he would be able to see through it. But now the scene in front of him didn't change. In other words, the scene before his eyes was not a fantasy. Instead, it was real. A huge palace made of white bones rose from the bottom of the forest. It was simply too inconceivable. The palace made of white bones ahead was enormous, emitting a desolated aura. The city walls and gates were all made of bones. It was 300 meters tall and incomparably terrifying. It was grander than any city Lin Xian had ever seen. Not only that, but the white bone city walls were also filled with sword scars, as if they had experienced countless battles. On top of that, it emitted an aura of vicissitudes. Could this be the Antiquity City? Lin Xian was extremely shocked. Everyone's eyes flickered as if they were facing a great enemy. Boom boom boom. After the palace made of white bones appeared, the lightning in the sky became even more violent. It was like a mad dragon constantly descending and surrounding the palace. But at this moment, the huge sword in the Sea of Bones suddenly emitted light, forming a huge sword shadow that slashed towards the palace in the sky. Mysterious Tao inscriptions appeared beside the black sword shadow. They carried a terrifying aura as if they wanted to suppress the white bone palace again. But the palace had already appeared, how could it go back? So in the next moment, the huge palace emitted a terrifying aura, and terrifying runes surrounded it. A white light shot up into the sky, resisting the black sword light. Black and white lights flashed, but there was no violent collision. Perhaps it was a different kind of battle that no one could understand. In any case, Lin Xian felt that the surroundings were enveloped by the black and white light. The surroundings were quiet and no sound could be heard. In fact, he could not even feel the existence of the other kings. This situation lasted for a period of time before it gradually dissipated. In the sky, the huge sword stopped attacking, and the runes around the palace shone even brighter. Not only that, but the enormous white bone gate was also slowly opening. Crack crack crack. A deep sound was heard as if a pair of invisible hands were controlling everything. In the sky, the terrifying lightning became denser, forming a net of electricity that constantly intertwined. The kings in the surroundings held their breaths as they stared at the scene in front of them. They wanted to know what was inside the palace. Was it a great opportunity or treasure? Or was it something else? Boom. Finally, the two huge doors of white bones were completely opened, and a cold aura surged out, sweeping in all directions. Everyone could feel the aura, and they trembled as if their lives were being taken away. Boom. In the next moment, light rushed out of their bodies to resist the aura of death. Lin Xian also surrounded himself with sword intent, slashing away all the aura of death around him. At the same time, he narrowed his eyes and looked ahead. Then he was extremely shocked, because through the open door he could see some of the situation inside. At the door, there were figures lined up neatly in a square formation. They wore ancient armor, and their expressions were solemn. They did not move, and there was no fluctuation of aura on them, as if they were terracotta soldiers. Damn, are these the burial items of some important person? The dark red dragon looked at the scene, and his scalp went numb. Burial items? What's going on? Lin Xian was confused, and even Gu Santong and Lu Mingyue were shocked. The dark red dragon said, "In the ancient times, when those peerless and terrifying people died, they had a habit. They will use some experts as funerary objects to be buried with them in the imperial mausoleum. It's said that some of the dynasties in Middle Ground often do this. Those dynasties are not ordinary countries, but each of them is comparable to the clan of the ancients and the peerless sacred grounds. Their kings are extremely terrifying." Chapter 1790. The monarchs of those dynasties are incomparably terrifying. It can be said that the dynasties are the most terrifying powers in the central continent. It is said that a long time ago there was a great Qin dynasty. When their monarch died, he buried 50,000 kings with him. What? 50,000 kings? Buried with him? Lin Xian sucked in a breath of cold air. This method was too heaven-shaking. Lu Mingyue also seemed to have never heard of such a thing. Thus, she frowned and said, "This doesn't conform to common sense. If so many kings were buried with him, wouldn't his dynasty's strength be greatly reduced?" Indeed, his strength would be greatly reduced. However, his foundation wouldn't be damaged. For those dynasties and your peerless holy lands, what decides their fate isn't the kings. Instead, it's your so-called foundation. I think you know this better than me. Lu Mingyue fell silent. Indeed, their All Beginnings holy land had some terrifying foundations. If they were to release them, they would definitely shock the world. Of course, it wasn't just the All Beginnings holy land. All the other peerless holy lands and ancient aristocratic families had such foundations. At this time, the dark red dragon continued, "Of course, this isn't because of personal preference. It's because of a legend. According to the legend, no matter how powerful an expert is, as long as they die, they will go to hell. And those monarchs hope to bring some elites into hell. Then, they will kill their way back to the mortal world and be reborn. That's why they bring so many powerful kings with them before they die." What? There's such a legend? Lin Xian felt his scalp go numb. The dark red dragon's voice was grave. For the sake of longevity, some people are willing to do anything. Gu Santong's eyes flickered. He looked ahead and muttered to himself. Could it be that the Palace of White Bones is the tomb of a peerless expert? And those silhouettes are the so-called funerary objects. Not only that, but the following scene was even more shocking. More and more black clouds appeared in the sky. The lightning became even more berserk. At this time, rain started to fall from the sky. However, this wasn't ordinary rain. Instead, it was a rain of blood. It was exceptionally scarlet and dazzling. The rain of blood fluttered down, shocking everyone and making their scalps go numb. They even hurriedly raised their energy barriers to resist the rain of blood. They didn't know what kind of terrifying result this rain of blood would have when it landed on their bodies, because they had never encountered such a situation before. At this moment, the kings who were still alive stopped fighting. They were all pacing back and forth near the sea of bones, abnormally silent. Gu Santong's eyes flickered as well. He said in a low voice, "I've read in the ancient books of my family that this phenomenon would only occur when a saint had fallen." Sage. Lu Mingyue cried out in surprise when she heard this. She had almost forgotten that she had been held captive by Lin Xian because the scene in front of her was too shocking. However, the dark red dragon added, "Not just an ordinary saint, but a saint who has reached an extremely terrifying realm. The death of an ordinary saint would not be able to achieve such a terrifying effect. Could it be that there's a terrifying figure hidden in the White Bone Demon Palace?" Upon hearing this, Lin Xian and the others sucked in a breath of cold air. Could this White Bone Palace be related to the ceiling of the Tilted Moon Profound World? No matter how much everyone thought about it, this was the only conclusion they could come up with. However, Lin Xian suddenly frowned and looked behind him. In the next moment, an abnormally sorry figure was running towards them from the forest behind them. That figure was covered in blood and his aura was extremely chaotic. When he saw Lin Xian, he was stunned. However, when he saw Lu Mingyue standing beside Lin Xian, he cried out in alarm. "Senior sister." Lu Mingyue was also surprised. She asked, "What happened to you? Why are you so heavily injured?" "Senior sister, please take revenge for us." The injured youth knelt on the ground and crazily roared. "Revenge?" Lu Mingyue's lips twitched. She was already a captive, so how could she take revenge? However, she still asked in a low voice. "Who injured you? Weren't you the one who established your own organization? Where are the others?" This youth covered in blood was also a disciple of the All Beginnings Holy Land. He wasn't together with Lu Mingyue. Instead, he had established his own organization. Since he was able to establish his own organization and was also a disciple of the All Beginnings Holy Land, he definitely wasn't weak. But now he was in an extremely sorry state. Hearing Lu Mingyue's words, that disciple clenched his teeth and said, "Our alliance was completely annihilated. It was the Wavering Light Saint's son. He easily annihilated our alliance. Not only that, he even killed Senior Brother Pei with a single palm strike." "What? He killed Senior Brother Pei with a single palm strike?" Lu Mingyue was shocked. She hadn't expected the Wavering Light Saint's son to be so terrifying. Senior Brother Pei was also from the same sect as him. His cultivation was a peak 5-star king, and his strength had already reached the level of a 6-star king. She hadn't expected that such a terrifying person would be killed by the Wavering Light Saint's son with a single palm strike. One had to admit that this was truly unbelievable. On the side, Lin Xian and Gu Santong were also silent. They discovered that the Wavering Light Saint's son was even more terrifying than they had imagined. "Senior sister, you must take revenge for us." The kneeling youth quickly crawled forward, wanting to approach Lu Mingyue. Lu Mingyue also couldn't bear it and wanted to help him up. However, at this moment Lin Xian frowned. His eyes shone brightly. Then he grabbed Lu Mingyue and retreated. "What are you doing?" Lu Mingyue didn't understand what Lin Xian was trying to do. However, in the next moment she was stunned. This was because the body of the kneeling youth in front of her suddenly emitted a dazzling light. Then it exploded. This energy was too violent. It wasn't inferior to the self-destruction of an Earth-grade treasure. The terrifying energy turned into a raging tide, enveloping Lin Xian and the other two. At this moment, Gu Santong moved. He slid his finger and suddenly, a huge black crack appeared in front of the three of them. It was like a gate to hell. Boom boom boom. The energy in front of them all surged into this crack. This process lasted for a long time. When the light in the sky disappeared, Gu Santong's body was covered in cold sweat. This kind of energy transfer consumed too much of his energy. Even he couldn't bear it. Therefore, when the energy in the sky disappeared, Gu Santong immediately swallowed a few recovery pills to recover his strength. Lin Xian's face was gloomy. It was too dangerous just now. He had almost been hit by the energy. If he had been hit, no matter how strong he was, he would have been severely injured. This was because that kind of self-destruction was too terrifying. Chapter 1791. She wasn't a weakling. With her eyesight, she could naturally see that the Wavering Light Sage had done something to the youth kneeling on the ground. No matter who that youth encountered, he would probably self-destruct. As for a heavily injured All Beginnings Holy Land cultivator, who could he look for? He would definitely look for someone from the All Beginnings Holy Land. If that was the case, many of the All Beginnings Holy Land's experts would be injured when that youth self-destructed. The Wavering Light Sage's thoughts were truly vicious. At the side, the dark red dragon also felt a lingering fear. "Brat, you must be careful when you encounter the Wavering Light Sage in the future." The other party was simply too terrifying. The dark red divine dragon was right. This kind of powerful, decisive, and meticulous scheming person would definitely make everyone feel incomparably fearful. Even Lin Xian felt an enormous threat from this enemy that he had never seen before. The terrifying scene ahead was still ongoing. The White Bone Palace's aura was becoming more and more terrifying. The surrounding kings had no choice but to patiently wait for the final transformation to complete. They didn't have anywhere to go and they didn't feel at ease leaving this place. Therefore, the majority of them decided to set up camp here. Lin Xian, Gu Santong, and the Dark Red Dragon discussed for a while before deciding to set up camp here as well. However, the place they chose was extremely remote. With Lin Xian and Gu Santong's strength, they would be able to rush over immediately if something happened ahead. Moreover, this would also prevent the other experts from looking at them with hostility. However, Lu Mingyue wasn't so lucky. She was really used as a maid. In the past few days she had been helping Lin Xian serve tea, pour water, roast meat and other miscellaneous tasks. In any case, she had done all the tasks that a servant would do. This made her feel as though she was going crazy. However, for the sake of survival she endured it. Even Gu Santong was speechless. If someone were to see this scene they would definitely be shocked. The proud daughter of the All Beginnings Holy Land had actually been reduced to a prisoner and a maid. This was simply too inconceivable. Lin Xian nodded in satisfaction. Not bad. It seems that you are not only talented in martial arts, but you are also very attentive as a maid. Like this, they waited for another 3 or 4 days. However, there weren't any changes in the White Bone Palace. It was still floating quietly in the sky. Lin Xian and Gu Santong waited silently, but there was someone who could not wait any longer. On this day, a few experts had a discussion and actually made a bold suggestion. They actually wanted to enter the Palace of Bones and check it out. The reason for that was because many people discovered that the Palace of Bones seemed to be the tomb of some grand individual. For such a peerless figure, there might be divine treasures buried in the cemetery. Therefore, they wanted to investigate. It wasn't just 1 or 2 people who had this idea, because these days, no unusual changes had been discovered in the White Bone Field. Coupled with their greed, they decided to take a risk. Immediately, a dozen or so king tiers responded and decided to follow him to investigate. However, the other warriors were still watching. Although the Bone Palace didn't mutate again, the aura it was emitting made their hair stand on end. In front of them, around 15 or 16 kings moved their bodies and rushed upwards at high speed. What are they trying to do? The dark red dragon saw this and felt his scalp go numb. Lin Xian and Gu Santong also saw what was happening. Their expressions were grave. They did not expect that someone would be so bold as to try to investigate the Palace of Bones above them. At this moment, all the surrounding kings looked up at the sky. In the sky, the dozen or so kings moved like lightning and arrived near the White Bone Palace in an instant. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The leader of the group was a middle-aged man. He flew up into the sky and continued to fly forward. He was getting closer and closer to the White Bone Palace. Buzz. In the next moment he stepped onto the White Bone construction site and stood on top of a giant white bone. He's going up. Everyone held their breaths when they saw this scene. As for the middle-aged man, he was also extremely excited. He looked at the white bone gate in front of him, took a deep breath and stepped out. Boom. In the next moment, a shocking change occurred. The middle-aged man in the sky aged rapidly in an instant. In the next moment he turned into a pile of white bones. La la la. The bones all over his body fell to the ground. What? Everyone's eyes widened when they saw this. They couldn't believe that a 6-star king had turned into a pile of white bones in an instant. What kind of technique is this? It's too terrifying. Everyone was stunned. Even Lin Xian was astonished. Gu Santong's expression turned serious. Could it be the power of time? The power of time? What's that? Lin Xian asked with a frown. Space is king, time is king. If someone can control space, there will naturally be someone who can control time. To age a king instantly and turn into a pile of white bones, this is definitely the power of time. What? This is the power of time. Lin Xian was also shocked when he heard this. He naturally knew what this meant. Among the 3,000 great Daos, time could be said to be the most mysterious and strange. He had never heard of anyone who could control the laws of time. Because it was simply too heaven-defying. If one could control time, they could change time and space and even become immortal. With a wave of their hand, they could turn everyone into white bones and bring people back to life. This kind of remarkable ability was shocking enough. However, since ancient times, very few people had been able to control this kind of power. As for whether those great emperors had mastered this kind of power, they did not know. But now, in this Palace of Bones, the power of time had appeared. It was simply too shocking. In the sky, after the middle-aged king had turned into a pile of white bones, the remaining kings saw this scene and felt their scalps go numb. They no longer dared to approach the Palace of Bones. Everyone moved and fled into the distance. However, at this moment, the Palace of Bones counterattacked. It seemed to have come to life, blooming with an incomparably pure white light on the city wall. Boom boom boom. More than a dozen streaks of light turned into divine rainbows and instantly pierced through all the kings in the sky. It was as easy as cutting through tofu. They've all been killed. When the surrounding warriors saw this scene, they were extremely shocked. Many of them felt lucky that they did not follow along. Otherwise they would probably have been killed by now. However, this luck quickly disappeared. This was because a low voice suddenly came from the Palace of Bones. The voice was very strange and they could not tell what it was. It sounded like the roar of a demon beast, but also like the sound of some kind of weapon. This voice carried an unparalleled pressure. As soon as it appeared, all the surrounding kings trembled. Even Gu Santong had been affected. Chapter 1792. Lin Xian was also affected. However, the great dragon sword soul in his body suddenly spun rapidly, emitting a sharp aura. It enveloped Gu Santong, Lu Mingyue and the dark red dragon. In an instant, the terrifying feeling disappeared. In another direction, Yi Wudao's body shone brightly. He was like a god of war. A golden lotus appeared behind him, resisting the unparalleled pressure. In the distance there was also a man shining brightly. 108 halos appeared around his body, making him look like a Buddha. He was extremely terrifying. In addition, the powerful beings were also resisting, but they could not withstand it. Fortunately, the voice was very short and disappeared as soon as it appeared. When the voice disappeared, everyone felt as if they had collapsed. Their bodies were drenched in sweat. Although the trembling voice had disappeared, the situation didn't improve. Because after the voice, the skeletons in the sea of bones below suddenly began to tremble. Ka. Countless bones quickly floated up and gathered together, forming many skeletal creatures that quickly recovered. Seeing this, everyone's scalps went numb and they kept retreating. Lin Xian and Gu Santong brought Lu Mingyue to a mountain peak and looked down. In the sea of bones below, countless skeletal creatures were resurrected, and they began to move. They formed a terrifying army of skeletons. What's going on? Are the gates of hell opening? Everyone was trembling. They didn't understand. What kind of terrifying changes were taking place? Lin Xian's expression was also serious. This scene was too strange. It seemed that the Palace of Skeletons had a mysterious power that revived the entire Sea of Bones. But what would happen next? If the skeletons attacked them, things would be troublesome. Indeed, in the next moment, the army of skeletons below began to move in all directions. Some of them even attacked the human kings. They're really attacking. Lin Xian's mouth twitched. He led his people and retreated again. The surrounding kings also retreated. Although they were strong, they could not withstand the attack of so many skeletons. Moreover, there was a terrifying palace of skeletons above them. Who knew what would happen? Therefore they did not dare to fight and retreated into the forest. Boom. At this moment, a king had actually made his move. An elder retreated instead of advancing. His terrifying palms slapped out, sweeping across the 9 heavens and 10 earths, directly shattering many of the skeletal creatures in front of him. What terrifying strength! Everyone felt their scalps go numb. Meanwhile, the old man raised his head and laughed heartily. Ha, my power has been restored. In the next moment, a shocking aura erupted from his body. Terrifying energy shook heaven and earth. Almighty! This is the power of an Almighty. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect the Almighty to recover his strength at this time. Could it be because of the Palace of Bones above? No one knew the reason, but they knew that some people were in danger. Sure enough, after the mighty figures recovered their strength, they scanned the surroundings, locked onto their targets and decisively attacked. Because of the previous battle, their strength had been suppressed, so some of their allies had been killed. Now that their strength had recovered, they naturally wanted to take revenge. Boom. One of the old men chuckled coldly and shot toward Leaf Dao Denier, apparently hoping to take advantage of the chaos to kill him. Boom. That elder brandished his fist, illuminating the entire sky. The terrifying power shattered the void, incomparably terrifying. This was the power of an Almighty, and it was fully displayed at this moment. In the crowd, Leaf Dao Denier retreated rapidly, his entire body emitting a resplendent light. He turned into a bolt of lightning and instantly pulled away. You're courting death. At this moment, the void fluctuated and a figure appeared, quickly punching that terrifying fist. You dare to attack my Yi family? Looks like you don't want to live anymore. It was a middle-aged man with an ordinary face, but the aura on his body was incomparably violent. Almighty. This middle-aged man was also an Almighty. And he was a warrior of the Yi family, who usually hid in the void to protect Leaf Dao Denier. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't make a move unless it was a moment of life and death. But now that Leaf Dao Denier was being chased by an Almighty, he finally came out. The two almighties confronted each other, causing the sky to collapse and the earth to crack. On the other side, a young man with 108 halos around his body flew through the void and into the distance. Behind him, a mysterious woman was also chasing. The mysterious woman's aura had also reached the almighty realm. Arcade Sage. He's being chased as well. Many warriors exclaimed because they realized that the young man with the dazzling halos was the terrifying Arcade Sage. But they didn't expect that he was being chased by an almighty as well. In addition, a few other prodigies were also being chased. Oh no. When Lin Xian saw this scene, his face turned gloomy. He said to Gu Santong, "Brother Gu, let's split up first. I feel like someone is going to kill me." With that, Lin Xian grabbed Lu Mingyue and threw her into the black earth. Then he used the heavenly dragon's 8 steps, turned into a stream of light, and quickly fled into the distance. That was because he felt that someone was watching him. Sure enough, in the next moment, an incomparably terrifying palm descended from the sky, directly blasting the place where Lin Xian was originally standing, shattering the void. "Kid, do you think you can escape?" An incomparably cold voice sounded. It was obvious that an almighty had his eyes on Lin Xian. "Brother Lin." When Gu Santong saw this scene, his expression turned solemn and he wanted to help. But in the next moment, his body trembled as a wave of fear rose from his heart. He felt that the aura that was spying on him before had appeared again, and it seemed to be much stronger than before. Could it be that the other party was also an almighty? Thinking of this, Gu Santong broke out in cold sweat. He used the void technique and instantly disappeared into the air. Boom boom boom. On the other side, Lin Xian was constantly shuttling through the forest. He didn't expect such a situation to happen. All the sealed almighties had recovered their strength. This wasn't good news for him. One had to know that he had previously killed many geniuses from the top sections. Now those people would probably go crazy and chase after him. Sure enough, there was an almighty chasing after him. Fortunately, he had mastered the heavenly dragon's 8 steps, so his speed was not inferior to the almighty. Otherwise, he would have been killed long ago. "Kid, let's see where you can run to." Behind him, the almighty's voice was cold. To be honest, he was extremely angry that he hadn't been able to catch up until now. In the next moment, he waved his sleeve, and the entire sky instantly turned black. A powerful cage sealed the surroundings. Lin Xian was also trapped here. Chapter 1793. The entire sky instantly darkened as a powerful cage sealed off the surroundings. Lin Xian was also trapped here. "Kid, why don't you run?" A red figure appeared in the void. It was a middle-aged man with a burly figure and red hair. His entire body emitted a violent aura. His aura was as deep as the sea. He was like a god of war, suppressing others until they could not breathe. However, Lin Xian's expression was cold. He was not affected by this aura. "You can actually resist my aura? Kid, I see that you have quite a few treasures on you." The red-haired middle-aged man sneered. "But it doesn't matter. Once I kill you, everything on you will be mine." Lin Xian snorted. "You're just taking advantage of your age. If we're in the same generation, I'll kill you like a dog." Indeed, Lin Xian was only in his 20s. The red-haired man was probably over 800 years old. He might even be an old monster who had lived for thousands of years. Even if Lin Xian had the great dragon sword soul, it would be difficult to make up for the difference in age. "It's useless for you to say so much. You can't run away today." The red-haired almighty sneered. "If we're in the same level, I'll kill you like a dog." Lin Xian pointed his sword at the almighty. The red-haired almighty sneered. "Kid, it's useless for you to say anything." As he spoke, he walked forward. "One move. I only need one move to kill you. Even if you're a peerless genius, you're just an ant in my eyes." The red-haired almighty had a look of disdain on his face. Then he slowly raised his palm and pressed it forward. Boom. The resplendent palm cut through the void. Light scattered in all directions and enveloped Lin Xian. Lin Xian's pupils shrank. He felt that the palm was too terrifying. It was far beyond his ability to resist. He did not dare to take it head-on. He used the heavenly dragon's 8 steps to the extreme and quickly retreated. Boom. The palm hit nothing, but the aftermath of the energy hit Lin Xian, causing him to vomit blood. He felt as if all the bones in his body were about to fall apart. Ah! He actually dodged it? The red-haired almighty being squinted his eyes and stared at Lin Xian. "Your footwork is very strange. It must be an extremely profound martial art. I didn't expect you to be able to master such a profound martial art. But it doesn't matter. When I catch you in a while, I naturally have a way to make you talk about this strange martial art. The red-haired Almighty looked down at Lin Xian. He was like a cat toying with a mouse. He wasn't in a hurry to kill Lin Xian. Instead, he reached out his hand from time to time, causing Lin Xian to flee in a hurry. Ah! Peerless geniuses and young geniuses are nothing in front of me. The red-haired mighty figure laughed disdainfully. On the other hand, Lin Xian's expression was abnormally cold. Although the previous palm strike did not hit him, the energy shockwave still caused him to suffer extremely serious internal injuries. All the bones in his body were about to fall apart, but he still kept moving. It couldn't be helped. This was the power of an almighty. It was simply too terrifying. He was still unable to resist at all. In front of him, the red-haired almighty seemed to have played enough. Therefore he said coldly, "Kid, it's over." As he spoke, he reached out his 5 fingers and grabbed at Lin Xian. It was like a 5-finger mountain, and a resplendent light illuminated the entire sky. This scene was simply too terrifying. The endless light was just one person's palm. It covered the sky and the earth. It was unimaginable. Was this the power of an almighty? It was simply too terrifying. Lin Xian's pupils constricted. He felt an unprecedented sense of danger. All the hair on his body stood on end. At this moment he could no longer care about anything else. He had to use all his strength. A dragon-shaped sword shadow appeared in front of him, and Lin Xian held it tightly. Not only that, but his eyes also shone brightly, and mysterious Dao patterns appeared. At this moment, Lin Xian sent out the great dragon sword soul and used the heavenly secret divine ability to find the flaw in the 5-finger mountain. Finally he found it. His entire body carried the dragon-shaped sword shadow and turned into a sharp ray of light, ruthlessly stabbing at the flaw. Sword light flashed as Lin Xian broke out of the encirclement, narrowly avoiding the palm strike. However, he still spat out a mouthful of blood. What? He actually dodged it? The red-haired almighty was extremely surprised. This time he had planned to end the battle. However, he did not expect the other party to be able to dodge it. He had to admit that it was simply too surprising. One had to know that there was a world of difference between an almighty and an almighty. It could be said that it was an insurmountable gap. It was impossible to cross realms to fight. However, the young man in front of him was actually able to dodge his attack. It really surprised him. Moreover, the other party was able to find his flaw. That shocked him even more. Those eyes. In the next moment, when the red-haired almighty saw Lin Xian's golden eyes, he was completely stunned. Could it be the legendary heavenly secret divine eyes? The red-haired almighty was extremely shocked. Then he laughed wildly. Ha ha, I didn't expect to encounter the heavenly secret divine eyes here. It seems that even the heavens are helping me. Kid, I didn't expect you to be a member of the heavenly secret tribe and have successfully activated the heavenly secret divine eyes. If that's the case, I can't let you live. After you die, I'll put your eyes to good use. With them, I might be able to improve further and even become a sage. The red-haired almighty was too excited. One had to know that the heavenly secret divine eyes were extremely mysterious and legendary. Moreover, the reason why the wavering light sacred land was angry and issued a kill order was related to the heavenly secret divine eyes. However, he did not expect that this thing would be discovered by him. Moreover, it was in the hands of a mere king. This way he could effortlessly obtain the heavenly secret divine eyes. Thinking of that, he laughed loudly. On the other side, Lin Xian's face darkened. He had already used his strongest combat strength and used the heavenly secret divine eyes to find the other party's flaw. However, so far he could only protect himself. It was impossible for him to kill the other party. However, he would not give up resisting. At most, he would die together with the other party. He would not let the other party have his way. Thinking of that, Lin Xian snorted coldly. The great dragon sword soul in his body quickly circulated, causing his aura to become even sharper. It was like a peerless divine sword. The golden light in his eyes was also extremely bright. Mysterious runes flickered and were extremely deep. It was like a golden starry sky. Seeing Lin Xian's reaction, the red-haired almighty sneered, "What, you still want to resist? You're overestimating yourself. The difference between us is like a firefly against the sun. You can't do anything in front of me." The red-haired almighty sneered and strode toward Lin Xian. With every step he took, the aura on his body became stronger. It was like an ancient mountain that suppressed people until they could not breathe. Chapter 1794. The critical moment was about to arrive. However, at this moment, the aura of the red-haired mighty figure changed. It no longer became extremely powerful. Instead, it retreated quickly like the tide. What's going on? Lin Xian was stunned. The red-haired mighty figure was also stunned. He felt the energy in his body rapidly depleting. No. Impossible. My power, where's my power? The red-haired mighty figure roared crazily. He realized that this scene was extremely familiar because it had happened once when he first came to the primeval forest. The laws of heaven and earth here had sealed him, causing his strength to fall below that of a mighty figure. Now the same thing was happening again. His power was about to be suppressed again. Sensing this scene, the red-haired mighty figure's face turned green. He did not expect such a thing to happen at the most critical moment. Damn it! I don't believe it. The red-haired mighty figure resisted crazily, but the strange energy sealed him. He realized that he could not control the energy in his body at all. Therefore, in the next moment he gave up resisting and pounced at Lin Xian crazily. He wanted to kill his opponent before his power was completely sealed. In this way the heavenly secret divine eyes would still be his. Lin Xian snorted coldly as his body swayed rapidly. He naturally noticed the abnormality. He knew that it was possible that the other party had been sealed by the laws here again. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated and dodged quickly. At least before the other party was sealed, he could not be caught by the other party. Damn brat! Stop right there! The red-haired mighty figure roared crazily. He realized that the other party was too fast and he could not catch him at all. And the energy in his body was rapidly depleting. In the next moment, a low sound came from his body, and his power finally fell below that of a mighty figure. He was sealed again. Sensing this scene, the red-haired mighty figure's expression was extremely ferocious. He roared angrily and decisively gave up on Lin Xian and fled into the distance. The red-haired mighty figure's cultivation was suppressed again, so he did not dare to fight anymore. He fled into the distance like a madman. Trying to leave? Lin Xian snorted coldly. His body was like lightning as he instantly chased after him. Previously the other party wanted to show off and kill him. How could he let him go now? After swallowing the best pill in his hand, Lin Xian crazily circulated the longevity technique to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy and quickly recovered from his injuries. In the next moment, he instantly appeared in front of the red-haired mighty figure. Get lost! The red-haired expert roared in rage and punched out. The terrifying red fist was extremely sharp and there was a red aura around it. It was as if a fire god had awakened and was extremely terrifying. It covered the sky and earth. It blasted towards Lin Xian, however. A cold smile appeared on Lin Xian's face. With his soul force he could clearly sense that the current attack was much weaker than before, which meant that the other party was to be sealed. He wasn't afraid of a sealed almighty. He didn't even need to dodge. Boom. Lin Xian punched out with the black dragon fist of destruction. The terrifying fist was like a huge mountain descending from the sky. What followed was a series of dragon roars. Boom. The two collided. The terrifying energy swept in all directions like a tsunami and blasted out thousands of ripples in the void. Boom. The red-haired mighty figure took 3 steps back. His face was extremely pale. That was because he realized that he could no longer hurt Lin Xian. Lin Xian sneered. What? You want to leave now? Weren't you very arrogant before? You want to kill me in the palm of your hand? Now you can try to kill me. He was furious. Previously, Lin Xian had taken advantage of his seniority and hundreds of years of cultivation to kill him. If not for the fact that he had many secret techniques, he might have been killed long ago. How could Lin Xian let the other party off so easily? Brat, get out of my way. To tell you the truth, even if my cultivation is suppressed, I'm still a mighty figure. I'm still not someone you can fight against. If you know what's good for you, get lost and I can spare your life. Otherwise, today will be the day you die. The red-haired mighty figure gritted his teeth. His voice was unusually cold. You still dare to be arrogant? Do you really think you're still the mighty figure from before? Lin Xian sneered, unmoved. The golden light in his eyes flickered and emitted a strange energy. I won't bully you. Let's fight to the death. You want to fight to the death with me? You're not worthy. The red-haired mighty figure snorted and still wanted to escape. What? You don't dare? Lin Xian sneered. Do you think someone like you is worthy of being a mighty figure? If you don't even dare to fight with me, there's no point in living like you. What an embarrassment to a mighty figure. Kid, you're courting death. The red-haired mighty figure's face was gloomy. As a mighty figure, his status was extremely noble. He had never been looked down upon like this. Now, a young kid dares to look down on me? That's unforgivable. Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. I want you to know that a mighty figure will always be a mighty figure. Even if I'm sealed, I'm not someone you can resist. After saying that, the red-haired mighty figure attacked mercilessly. A gigantic fiery red palm appeared in the sky and grabbed at Lin Xian from all directions. This red palm was hundreds of feet long and was like a flaming mountain. It descended quickly and its aura was suffocating. The red-haired mighty figure was right. Even if a mighty figure was sealed, it was not something that an ordinary king could contend with. This aura far exceeded that of a 6-star king. It was abnormally powerful. Most likely not many people would be able to resist it. The void fluctuated and was easily torn apart like a painting. The entire space was trembling, and the dazzling twilight illuminated the entire forest. A sealed mighty figure? Killing you is as easy as slaughtering a dog. Lin Xian snorted coldly. Then he let out a long roar. The great dragon sword soul in his body circulated crazily, and a terrifying aura swept out in all directions. As soon as he attacked, Lin Xian launched a fierce attack. The 9 darkness demonic sword waved quickly, and a terrifying sword light slashed forward. He did not hold back and used his ultimate move. The demonic sword in his hand was extremely sharp as if it had come alive. Poof! The sword slashed down and blood splattered. The red palm was cut in half. Blood splattered everywhere, dyeing the sky red. As for the red-haired mighty figure, he roared crazily with a ferocious expression. He retreated rapidly and blood flowed from his palm. The red palm was formed by him. Now that it was cut in half, his palm was also affected. Fortunately, it was only a palm of light. If it was his main body, it would probably not exist anymore. Kid, how dare you hurt me? The red-haired mighty figure roared crazily. As a mighty figure, he had not been injured for many years, let alone by a young kid. Chapter 1795. As a mighty figure, he had not been injured for many years, let alone by a brat. If word of this got out, it would definitely shock the world. So what if I hurt you? Lin Xian snorted. Not only will I hurt you, but I'll also kill you. Kill me? Just you? You're overestimating yourself. Don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you can hurt me. I didn't even use my full strength just now. Come on, don't be so stubborn. Do you still think you're the mighty figure from before? Lin Xian held the killing sword in his hand and said coldly, do you think you can mercilessly kill the younger generation just because you've cultivated for a long time and are powerful? Your way of doing things is despicable. Now I'll enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and get rid of a scourge like you. Lin Xian shouted coldly as the aura on his body became more powerful. You're courting death. It seems that if I don't show you my true strength, you won't know how powerful I am. The red-haired mighty figure gritted his teeth. In his opinion, even if he was sealed, it was not impossible for him to kill his opponent with his methods and experience. He just needed to spend a little more effort. Previously, he did not want to waste his energy, but now it seemed that he had no choice but to kill his opponent. Brat, I wanted to let you go, but since you're courting death, don't blame me. The red-haired mighty figure once again revealed a sinister smile. The aura in his body surged rapidly and covered the entire sky. This time, Lin Xian did not say anything and stabbed out with the 9 darkness demonic sword. This sword was extremely terrifying. It was like a long black dragon running wildly in the sky. Seeing this sword, the red-haired mighty figure was shocked. He did not expect his opponent's sword technique to be so powerful. This sword was really beyond his expectations. In the next moment, he roared angrily and a terrifying power surged in his body. He blasted forward in an attempt to resist this sword. However, he still underestimated this sword. Poof! The sword flashed and an earth-shattering collision sounded, shaking the surroundings. Then, blood splattered everywhere and a shrill cry was heard, causing the surrounding beasts to tremble. A hole appeared in the red-haired Almighty's attack. Not only that, his body was pierced through by the 9 netherworld demon sword, nailing him in the air. This scene was simply too terrifying. A supreme being had actually been injured by a 4-star king, and he was severely injured at that. Perhaps he had never imagined such a scene even in his dreams. Although the red-haired mighty being's cultivation had been suppressed and had fallen to the mighty being realm, not everyone could fight against him. It could even be said that no one below the Almighty's was a match for them. However, the current situation was beyond the red-haired Almighty's expectations. He did not expect that the other party would be able to heavily injure him with a single strike. The red-haired mighty figure roared into the sky with a ferocious expression. The energy in his body exploded, and the light shone like a red sun. In the next moment, a terrifying force collided with the Nine Darkness demonic sword, and the red-haired mighty figure quickly retreated. "Brat, you dare to hurt me? I'm going to kill you." The red-haired almighty roared madly and quickly used a secret technique to temporarily seal the wound so that it would stop bleeding. However, his face was abnormally pale. That sword strike just now had caused him to suffer heavy injuries. However, he couldn't care less about that now. He swore that he had to kill the other party. Otherwise, if the other party continued to grow, he would definitely become a terrifying peerless powerhouse in the future. He wouldn't allow such a threat to exist in this world. In the next moment, a terrifying red light surged out from his body, covering the sky and earth, instantly enveloping the entire space. The sky and earth were filled with terrifying red light, emitting a terrifying aura. As for the red-haired mighty figure, he was like a god fiend, and his entire body was extremely powerful. In fact, the pressure of an almighty reappeared on his body. Whoosh! Like metal colliding and mercury flowing, a long red chain appeared on the arm of the red-haired mighty figure. It surged rapidly and swept forward. The red chain was incomparably scarlet, and it carried a monstrous killing intent and a terrifying aura. Needless to say, this was an Earth-grade treasure with boundless power. Scarlet Flame Chain. A low voice came from the mouth of the red-haired mighty figure. The terrifying chain was like a maggot attached to a bone, instantly wrapping around Lin Xian as if it was going to refine him. A terrifying light soared into the sky, and terrifying cracks appeared in the space. It seemed that nothing could stop the Scarlet Flame Chain. At this moment, the surrounding red light surged, and a sinister and terrifying voice appeared, as if it was a Shura from hell. Annihilation Black Dragon Fist. Break. Lin Xian, on the other hand, was extremely domineering. His eyes sparkled as he quickly searched for openings. At the same time, he unleashed the Annihilation Black Dragon Fist. With a punch, terrifying energy surged and instantly hit the flaw, shattering the red light that filled the sky. The Scarlet Flame Chain flew out like a long snake. Not only that, but the power of the punch also rushed toward the red-haired mighty figure. Boom! The red-haired mighty figure vomited blood again. His chest caved in and more than half of the bones in his body shattered. "No, again. He spat out a few words with difficulty because he couldn't believe it. How could the other party be so powerful? He was a mighty figure. Even if he was sealed, he was still a mighty figure. Even a 6-star king was like an ant in his hands. However, the young man in front of him only had the cultivation of a 4-star king, but his combat strength was even more powerful than his sealed self. He couldn't believe it. Damn brat, go to hell. As a mighty figure, he couldn't only have these ultimate moves. Therefore, he waved his sleeve and a dark red pagoda appeared in the void. Powerful fluctuations suppressed the void and terrifying energy surged out. The red-haired mighty figure used all his strength to push the dark red pagoda forward. He wanted to kill Lin Xian. Boom, boom, boom. The dark red pagoda was extremely terrifying, and it was also an Earth-grade treasure. Its body emitted light, and a red aura descended, intertwining to form a red lightning bolt that rapidly bombarded. Lightning surged like a lightning tribulation. The moment it appeared, it shattered everything and completely enveloped Lin Xian. "Ah, kid, die." The red-haired man laughed sinisterly. The red pagoda was one of his trump cards. Once he used it, it was extremely terrifying. He believed that the other party was a 4-star king. Even if his attack power was powerful, his defense was weak and couldn't block his attack. However, Lin Xian was unusually calm in the red lightning that filled the sky. Beside him, the dragon sword domain rose and fell, blocking all the lightning. Not only that, Lin Xian even stretched out his left hand, and countless sword chi condensed to form a dragon's head. Brr. The dragon's head roared toward the sky and opened its bloody mouth, forming a powerful force. The red lightning that filled the sky seemed to be attracted by something and crazily gathered toward the dragon's head in Lin Xian's hand. Chapter 1796. Suddenly, the red lightning that filled the sky disappeared, and a dark red ball of lightning formed in Lin Xian's palm. Boom. Lin Xian waved his arm and threw the dark red ball of lightning at the red pagoda. The collision of the two made an earth-shattering sound. The powerful energy blasted in all directions, and the red pagoda was on the verge of collapse. There were even cracks on it. The red-haired cultivator vomited blood again, and the light on his body dimmed. "You." He struggled and his body trembled. "Damn it, who are you?" The red-haired cultivator's voice trembled. He could not believe that a 4-star cultivator could be so powerful. He even suspected that the other party was also a cultivator who was hiding his identity. My name is Lin Xian. Lin Xian's voice was firm and his face was cold. He would not let the other party go, so it did not matter even if he told the other party his name. Lin Xian. Lin Xian. The red-haired cultivator muttered with a confused expression. He knew many young geniuses in Eastern Wilderness, but he did not find anyone named Lin Xian. He did not even know who the other party was or which sect he was from, but the other party's power was too terrifying. He could not withstand it. Alright, since you know my name you can go to hell. Lin Xian said coldly as he raised the 9 darkness demonic sword in his hand. Oh. Seeing this, the red-haired cultivator roared crazily, and despair appeared on his face. At this moment he could no longer care about anything else. He burned his blood and spiritual power to launch a shocking attack, trying to resist and escape. However, a dragon-shaped sword shadow appeared in front of Lin Xian and merged with the 9 darkness demonic sword. Then he stabbed with the sword. The black sword radiance was like heavenly thunder, descending rapidly. The red pagoda and red flame chains were all sent flying. At this moment nothing could stop it. Poof! The sword was out and the cultivator was dead. The red-haired cultivator fell to the ground, blood flowing out and his eyes dimmed. If someone was here and saw this scene they would be shocked and go crazy. This was because Lin Xian had killed a mighty figure. Although he was a sealed almighty, he was still an almighty. Although this kind of sealed almighty was not as strong as before, it was still not something that anyone could contend against. But now he was actually killed by someone. It had to be said that it was really too shocking. Lin Xian was expressionless. The other party had only himself to blame for this. He did not have any enmity with the other party, but the other party wanted to make a move on him out of greed. In the end this was the result. After taking a deep breath, Lin Xian waved his sleeve and put away the dark red pagoda, the scarlet flame chain, and the man's ring of holding. After killing the red-haired mighty figure, Lin Xian released Lu Mingyue. To be honest, Lu Mingyue was very shocked because she didn't expect Lin Xian to carry such a mysterious space with him. Furthermore, from the looks of it, that space was extremely huge. This made her extremely shocked. What kind of magical treasure did he have? Naturally, she didn't know that Lin Xian had a black earth with him. The space inside was larger than any storage ring. And all of Lin Xian's cultivation techniques and treasures were stored in the black earth. When he wanted to use it, he only needed to think and the items would come out. Moreover, this black earth could not only store items but also people. For example, he had placed Lu Mingyue inside. The black earth belonged to the 4th-generation successor of the dragon sword. Not to mention Lu Mingyue, even if a mighty figure entered, he wouldn't be able to do anything. Therefore Lu Mingyue was extremely shocked. However, when she came out she was even more shocked. She even widened her eyes in disbelief. That was because she discovered the red-haired mighty figure on the ground. She knew the identity of the red-haired mighty figure. He was a rogue cultivator, but his strength had reached the level of a mighty figure. Could be said that he was extremely terrifying. Previously, when she was in the outside world, she had seen him make a move. It was very powerful. But now he was actually killed. Who did it? Lu Mingyue looked around and found that there were no other powerhouses. The next moment, she looked at Lin Xian and her pupils constricted. You killed him? Lu Mingyue's voice was trembling. She had been defeated by Lin Xian before, so she knew that he was powerful. However, no matter how powerful he was, it was impossible for him to kill a mighty figure. That was a world of difference. Even if it was a sealed mighty figure, it was impossible for others to completely kill them. One had to know that these mighty figures had cultivated for hundreds or thousands of years and had many trump cards in their hands. Although their cultivation was suppressed, they could still protect themselves with many trump cards. But now, a mighty figure had been killed. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. There's no need to be shocked. It's just a sealed mighty figure, not a real mighty figure. Alright, come with me. I'm a little tired. Boil 2 pots of spirit wine for me. Lin Xian waved his hand and left with Lu Mingyue. Not long after they left, other kings appeared in this place. Those kings had fled from the Sea of Bones to this place. However, when they saw the corpse on the ground in the next moment, they were extremely shocked. Heavens, that's the corpse of a mighty figure. What? A mighty figure? That's impossible. You didn't see wrong. How can a mighty figure be killed? Those people were too shocked. They could not believe it at all. One had to know that it was a mighty figure. In their eyes, it was an extremely terrifying existence. And now he was actually killed by someone. Damn it, who did it? Could it be that there's already chaos among the mighty figures? The king's expressions were ugly. The mighty figures usually did not participate in the previous battles, so those who died were ordinary kings. As for those almighties, they hadn't fallen yet. But now, a mighty figure had died. In these people's opinion, ordinary kings could not kill a mighty figure at all. Only a mighty figure could kill a mighty figure. Hearing that, the surrounding kings felt their scalps go numb. Their eyes were filled with fear. They quickly turned around and left this place. They could not stay here any longer because they guessed that there might be a mighty figure or some other terrifying figure hiding nearby. They did not dare to stay here at all because they would not be able to fight back if they encountered the mighty figure. Everyone was fleeing. A few top prodigies were being chased by the mighty figure, while the ordinary kings were fleeing crazily. That was because the skeleton army of the Sea of Bones was quickly charging towards them. However, these kings did not run for long before they ran back with ugly expressions. Even their faces were green. That was because they realized that the monsters in the forest had become abnormally violent at this moment. Not only that, they also realized that the auras of the kings had changed. They were stronger than before. Some of the unlucky kings had arrived near the nest of a ferocious beast. In the next moment, an earth-shattering sound came from the valley. Chapter 1797. That aura caused the kings to tremble. Even their spiritual energy couldn't circulate smoothly. Damn it, what kind of energy is that? It's too scary. The kings felt their scalps go numb. They realized that this aura had surpassed that of an almighty and had reached an unbelievable level. What? That's six-armed divine ape. The kings exclaimed as they looked into the distance. Sure enough, in the valley, a huge figure rushed out. Its entire body was shining with golden light, like a golden god of war. On its body, 6 arms were waving non-stop. Terrifying energy rushed into the sky, easily tearing the void apart. Not only that, a pair of golden wings grew out from the back of the 6-armed divine ape. The wings spread out and shone with divine light, like 2 golden heavenly blades. Boom! The golden wings flapped and carried the huge body into the sky. The surrounding air turned into a golden whirlwind under the golden wings, sweeping in all directions. One of the kings did not dodge and was enveloped by the golden whirlwind and torn into pieces. Terrifying, too terrifying. The remaining kings felt their scalps go numb as they fled crazily. They realized that the 6-armed divine ape's strength had increased by a lot. Could it be that the 6-armed divine ape had been sealed before? Thinking of this, they did not dare to believe it. If that was the case, then it was too terrifying. Just how terrifying was the 6-armed divine ape? Before they could react, furious roars rang out from other places as well. In the entire primitive forest, all the remaining kings felt it. They realized that the powerful monster kings were displaying heaven-defying strength. Their terrifying auras soared into the sky and swept through the entire forest. Not good. These monster kings are going to go berserk. In the forest, the dark red divine dragon's expression was grave. Lin Xin, who was at the side, frowned. They realized that the powerful demon kings from before were even stronger than before. Obviously, they guessed that these monster kings were sealed before, just like humans. Now that the white bone demon palace had appeared, the seal on their bodies was removed and their original strength was displayed. What was this white bone demon palace? And what was going on with this primitive forest? Why were there so many powerful monster kings here? Lin Xin simply couldn't understand. Inside this oblique moon profound world, every corner was filled with strange mysteries. However, now wasn't the time to think about these things. They discovered that in the forest, countless demon kings were moving towards the White Bone Devil Hall. That aura formed a storm, forcing everyone to flee again. They realized that there was no way to escape. They were forced to return to the Bone Sea. The current situation was extremely dangerous for them. There was a bone army in front of them. It was extremely terrifying. Furthermore, the Berserk Demon King behind them was even more terrifying. For a moment, Lin Xin and the others were caught in a dilemma. However, Lin Xin quickly made up his mind to return to the Bone Sea. Firstly, those Demon Kings were truly too powerful, and they were utterly unable to resist them. In comparison, although the skeleton army was large in number, their individual combat strength was not very strong. In comparison, it was better to return to the Bone Sea. Furthermore, he had a feeling that these monster kings had become stronger because of the White Bone Palace. Moreover, he also wanted to see what kind of changes had happened to the White Bone Palace. Therefore, he flew back in the direction of the Palace of Bones. The other kings did the same. However, they did not return on their own accord. Instead, they were chased back by the monster kings. That was because the auras of these monster kings were simply too terrifying. There were even a few that had surpassed the power of a mighty figure. Among them, the six-armed divine ape was incomparably valiant. It was like a golden god of war. Apart from that, there was also a huge divine crocodile. It was 100 feet long and its entire body was shining with light. On the other side, there was a 9-headed lion. It opened its ferocious mouth as if it could devour the entire sky. Without exception, these powerful monster kings all flew towards the White Bone Palace. Heavens, it's too terrifying. Damn it, what's happening? Is the world going to be destroyed? These monster kings are too terrifying. Could it be that they have reached the level of a peerless mighty figure? The kings felt their scalps go numb as they quickly fled. Soon, these monster kings and the Bone Army met, and a shocking battle broke out between the two. The scene was too terrifying. The six-armed divine ape roared as it waved its 6 palms. It was like 6 golden mountains that kept crashing down. Every strike could shatter a large portion of the Bone Army. Cracks appeared in the sky, and there were even 6 huge black holes in the void. On the other side, the divine crocodile that was 100 feet long swept its huge tail. It was as sharp as a heavenly blade, and a large portion of the Bone Army was cut in half. The 9-headed lion was even more ferocious. Its 9 heads spat out wind, fire, and lightning. All kinds of terrifying attacks turned into a frenzy of energy that swept in all directions. Many of the Bone Army were annihilated in an instant. However, more and more bone creatures crawled out from the ground, covering the sky and earth. They were densely packed and crazily counterattacking. This scene was too shocking. It was as if an ancient war had appeared in front of everyone. Some of the kings could not dodge in time and were blasted by the energy, turning into a bloody mist. The remaining people fled as if they had gone mad. They wanted to get away from this terrifying scene. Gradually, these powerful monster kings came near the Sea of Bones. They looked at the White Bone Palace in the sky and roared non-stop. Brr, brr. Their roars were like thunder, tearing through the void, causing everyone's body to tremble and Shuang to bleed. Lin Xian had already thrown Lu Mingyue into the Black Earth once again. Her magic power was sealed, so she could not use any energy at all. She could not fight against the scene here. He did not want to take her life for the time being, so he threw her into the Black Earth. As for him, he joined hands with the dark red divine dragon to create a light screen to defend against the terrifying energy frenzy and the earth-shaking roars. However, Lin Xian was even more puzzled by the scene in front of him. What was going on? Why were these monster kings attacking the White Bone Palace? Could it be that there was really a treasure inside? In front, the monster kings were crazily attacking the White Bone Palace. The 6 arms of the 6-armed godly ape waved continuously, forming a golden hurricane that swept towards the White Bone Palace in the sky. It was like countless golden demonic clouds that rushed forward quickly. On the other side, the divine crocodile opened its bloody mouth and spat out 5-colored lightning. The sky surged and the thunder rumbled. A terrifying energy rushed forward. The 9-headed lion's 9 heads emitted a terrifying energy that turned into an energy storm and blasted towards the White Bone Palace. Chapter 1798. Other than these 3 powerful demon kings, there were more than 10 other terrifying demon beasts. They roared and attacked fiercely. In an instant, the entire void boiled and was drowned by this violent energy. In front of them, the White Bone Palace was filled with an ancient aura. At this moment, demonic runes appeared under the huge White Bone Palace. Then, a white light shone and spread in all directions. The terrifying energy that filled the sky was completely suppressed by this white light. Seeing this, Lin Xian and the others' pupils shrank. They could not believe it. This White Bone Palace was too terrifying. This was because these demon kings had surpassed the almighty level. They were extremely powerful. With so many demon kings attacking together, they could overturn the sky and earth. However, they could not shake the White Bone Palace. What was this White Bone Palace? Was it really the tomb of a saint? The 6-armed godly ape, the crocodile god, and the other demon kings roared angrily when they saw that their attacks were ineffective. However, they seemed to be afraid and did not dare to get too close to the White Bone Palace. It was as if there was something in the White Bone Palace that was threatening them. However, their attacks did not stop. Intense collisions erupted in the sky. Terrifying energy swept in all directions. The ones who suffered the most were the human kings. Although they were extremely powerful, they were as weak as ants in front of the terrifying demon kings in the White Bone Palace. Many kings were even hit by the shockwaves and exploded. Even more warriors were red in the face as they resisted with all their might. At this moment, the few kings who were secretly adding fuel to the fire had ugly expressions on their faces. This was because if they did not attack, there would not be so much blood and the bone ocean would not have such a shocking change. However, it was all too late. There was no point in regretting it. On Lin Xian's side, he also propped up the dragon sword domain to resist. He was in a relatively good situation. Although it was dangerous, all the energy attacks were cut apart by his sword chi. None of them reached him. However, Lin Xian's expression was extremely serious. This was not the way to go. Brother Lin. The void rippled and Gu Santong appeared in front of Lin Xian. His face was pale and he was injured. After Lin Xian left, he was targeted by a mysterious expert. The other party seemed to want to capture him. Fortunately, he was skilled in spatial secret techniques. That was why he was able to escape. In addition, the Demon Kings attacked and forced the mysterious expert to retreat. It could be said that Gu Santong's experience was more dangerous than Lin Xian's. Now, the two of them worked together to resist the attacks from the surroundings and achieved obvious results, while the other kings also joined forces. But at this moment the situation changed again. In the sky, the terrifying six-armed godly ape suddenly dived down and landed on the ground. The golden eyes scanned the surroundings before a cold voice resounded, "Humans, enter the ancient city." This voice was like a clap of thunder reverberating in the sky. What? Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Then their faces turned ugly. There was a city nearby and that was the White Bone Palace. Could it be that they had entered? What a joke. That is. Indeed, someone immediately counterattacked. However, he was answered by a golden palm. 3 of the kings were instantly smashed into a bloody mist. They could not fight back at all. Seeing this, everyone felt their scalps go numb. It was too terrifying. In front of the godly ape, even the Almighties were no match. You can choose to fight back, but there is only one outcome. You will be killed. Or you can obediently enter the ancient city. If you are lucky, you might be able to survive. Lucky? What's so lucky about that? One of the elders gritted his teeth and roared. Once they stepped into the godly ape palace, they would be turned into a pile of bones. Don't worry. That won't happen anymore. Go in. The cold voice sounded again. Then flames appeared on the godly ape's body and spread in all directions. If the humans tried to escape, the godly ape would attack them mercilessly. Kid, what should we do? Do you want to break out of the encirclement? The dark red divine dragon asked. Lin Xian shook his head slightly. He had thought of this idea as well. However, it seemed to him that it was simply too dangerous. The godly ape in front of him was too terrifying. It was definitely more powerful than an ordinary almighty. Its strength was unimaginable. Moreover, there were so many monster kings around. Where could he escape to? He might be killed in the end. Why not take the risk and enter the godly ape palace? Judging from the situation, the monster kings probably wanted them to enter the godly ape palace. As for what would happen after they entered, they did not know. However, they would not be turned into a pile of bones like the last time. The others looked pale. It seemed that they had no choice but to go in. Therefore, some of them gritted their teeth and flew into the sky. Soon they arrived above the godly ape palace. Everyone held their breaths. However, they realized that this time, they did not turn into bones like the last time. Instead, that person entered the godly ape palace directly. It's really possible. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. They felt that this might be an opportunity. Since they might be killed if they stayed here, they might as well go in and take the risk. Because now, they knew that the godly ape palace was definitely not ordinary. There might be great opportunities inside. Thinking of this, they did not hesitate and all of them flew into the sky. Let's go. Lin Xian and Gu Santong looked at each other. Then the 3 of them followed the crowd and entered the godly ape palace. But just as they stepped into the godly ape palace, a strange energy came out and forced Lu Mingyue out of the black earth. She could not stay any longer. What's going on? As soon as Lu Mingyue came out, she saw the giant bone city not far away. She was so scared that her face turned pale. She looked at Lin Xian and gritted her teeth. Damn you. Are you crazy? How dare you come here? If you want to turn into a pile of bones, I won't stop you. But don't hold me back. To be honest, she was really scared. The scene of the monster kings being killed by the godly ape palace was still deeply imprinted in her mind. How could she not be scared when she saw that Lin Xian had brought her to the godly ape palace? However, Lin Xian said coldly, "Shut up. If you want to die, you can go down. I won't stop you." But if you want to live, you have to stay by my side. Chapter 1799. Lin Xian's voice was cold. He didn't want to kill Lu Mingyue, because holding a person who was qualified to become the saintess of all beginnings was more valuable than killing her. Lu Mingyue looked around and found that all the kings had come to the front of the giant bone city. She immediately understood. These people had no choice but to enter the giant bone city. But if they went down now, they might not survive. Not to mention that her strength was sealed now. Even if she was at her peak, she couldn't withstand a blow from the six-armed ape. Seeing that she didn't speak, Lin Xian waved his hand and a sword light wrapped around Lu Mingyue. I don't know why, but you can't hide now. You can only follow me. Then follow me closely. Don't get lost. This sword light can protect you. At the same time, Lin Xian also unlocked some of her seals, giving her some strength. But it was impossible for her to escape. Don't think about running away, or you'll end up miserable. Lin Xian warned again. Lu Mingyue also knew the current situation. She couldn't wait to follow Lin Xian. Because Lin Xian was powerful, and he had the combination of Gu Santong and the dark red dragon with him, even in danger her survival rate was greatly increased. She wouldn't leave now. In the next moment, Lin Xian and the others stepped into the Palace of Bones. The giant bone city was extremely terrifying, emitting a monstrous aura. Two tall white bone doors were completely opened, revealing the scene inside. Not far in front, there were figures wearing ancient battle robes. Each of them had great spiritual power. However, there was no vitality in them. Lin Xian and the others knew that these were the funerary objects of some of the most powerful figures in the world. They glanced around and found that there were many of these burial objects. If they were resurrected, they would probably turn this world upside down. But fortunately, when they went in, the terrifying figures in front of them didn't wake up. They stood there like statues. When they passed by, their bodies began to tremble. They could sense a terrifying aura emanating from those figures. It was like a divine sword, unusually fierce. At this moment, the demon kings in the sky began to attack again. Streaks of sharp energy slammed into the white bone city. There were even a few terrifying beams of light that blasted towards the white bone door. In the blink of an eye, it passed through the two gates and blasted into the city of bones. Not good. Many kings were alarmed. They realized that the terrifying beams of light would probably affect them. Therefore, in the next moment, these people quickly ran inside. The entire white bone city began to emit a terrifying light. Then, those statue-like figures actually came to life. Ka. The kings who had been buried with Qin Wenyan began to emit their auras, and their bodies began to move like wooden puppets. Although it was a little stiff, it carried a terrifying power with it. Boom. Boom. They were rapidly attacking outside. Terrifying saber lights, palm shadows, and sword chi streaked across the sky, fighting against the demon kings outside. He's revived. When everyone saw this scene, their scalps went numb. Lin Xian also frowned. This scene was too strange. Could it be that these people didn't die? Or were they already dead and now they're revived in some way? He could not figure it out, but he realized that this white bone city was full of mysteries. Boom. 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 At this moment, more than 10 attacks landed near them and then exploded. Terrifying energy swept towards them. Lin Xian and the others quickly retreated. They knew that it was no longer safe to go out from the entrance. They had to go inside. Moreover, some kings had already done so. They realized that the burial items would not attack them for the time being. Therefore, these people became bolder and ran into the white bone city. Let's go too, Lin Xian said in a low voice. Then he, Gu Santong, the dark red divine dragon, and Lu Mingyue followed the others into the city. This was because it was too dangerous. They could be affected by the shockwaves of the energy at any time. The group of people walked in and realized that the inside of the white bone city was no different from an ordinary city. Buildings and streets crisscrossed the city. However, the buildings here were more ancient and they were filled with the style of the ancient era. Moreover, there was dust and broken walls everywhere. There were even spider webs everywhere. It was obvious that no one had been here for countless years. Even though Lin Xian and the other kings were walking on the streets, they could still feel that the entire city was filled with a strong sense of death. It was as if this was a dead city. The terrifying attacks outside were still ongoing. It seemed like those kings of monsters were trying to destroy this white bone city. However, this white bone city was too terrifying. It was too strange. It was not damaged at all. In fact, it did not even shake. If they could not hear the deafening sounds outside and see the sky full of light, they would have thought that they were dreaming. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sky above them darkened. It was as if a dark cloud had covered the sky. In the next moment everyone looked up. They saw a yellow figure like a golden mountain appear above them. It formed a huge projection. Six-armed godly ape. Everyone cried out in surprise when they saw this. They did not expect the six-armed godly ape to appear above the white bone city. What was it trying to do? Boom. Yes, it was indeed the six-armed godly ape. As soon as it appeared, it waved its 6 arms and formed 6 huge golden light pillars. Then it shot downward. Boom. 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 This time, the light pillars finally reached the interior of the white bone city. The terrifying light pillars hit the interior of the white bone city, causing the entire city to tremble. Even the ground cracked and the surrounding buildings were pierced through. Oh no! At this moment, the surviving kings felt their scalps go numb. They did not gather together anymore. Instead, they fled in all directions. Everyone wanted to reach a safe place to escape this disaster. Lin Xian's expression was also cold. He used the dragon sword realm to envelop everyone. Then he turned into an aurora and rushed into the distance. In front of him was a disciple of the Five Elements sect. When he saw Lin Xian, he immediately let out a cold breath. That was because Lin Xian and the Five Elements sect had a grudge against each other. However, now was not the time for revenge. Boy, I saw this place. Get out of here quickly. After saying that, the disciple of the Five Elements sect snorted and entered an old house in front of him. The old house was very shabby. It was covered with dust and spider webs. However, at this moment, it had become a safe place to hide. That was because everyone realized that the older the house, the less likely it was to be damaged by such attacks. Chapter 1800. They realized that the older the house, the more resistant it was to such an attack. Perhaps there was some mysterious power protecting these ancient houses. That Five Elements sect's disciple quickly entered the ancient house in front of him. Moreover, he released a ray of Five Elements power and sealed the door. It seemed that he did not want Lin Xian and the rest to enter. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes when he saw this. Lu Mingyue said anxiously, "What should we do? Should we force our way in? We have more people anyway." Gu Santong shook his head and said, "There is no need to waste time fighting. There are many houses around here. We can look for others. Let's go in another direction." Lin Xian said. He did not want to fight now. The appearance of the giant bone city and the appearance of the demon king were all caused by the blood that was spilled when they fought. He didn't know what would happen if he fought in this city of bones and caused a terrifying amount of blood to flow again. Who knew what would happen? It might lead to something even more terrifying. Therefore Lin Xian did not want to fight now. It was better to avoid this disaster first. Lin Xian and the rest turned around and prepared to leave to look for other houses. However, just as they turned around, they heard a scream coming from the house in front of them. The scream was very pitiful and it was filled with fear. It was as if the person had encountered something terrible. Lin Xian and the rest stopped in their tracks when they heard the scream. They turned around and looked in front of them. Previously, a disciple of the Five Elements sect had entered the ancient house. Why was he screaming now? Was he under attack? However, other than him, no one else had entered the house. Lu Mingyue was also scared out of her wits when she heard the scream. No matter how powerful she was still a woman. She was terrified when she saw something unknown. Is there someone else inside? Or is there something we don't know? Lin Xian and the rest were shocked. They looked in front of them and decided to take a look. When they arrived at the house, they suddenly heard crunching sounds coming from inside. It was as if someone was gnawing on a bone. Hearing this voice, their scalps went numb. Lu Mingyue's face turned pale and her eyes were filled with fear. That was because the sound was simply too strange. Coupled with the scream from before, Li Tianlan thought. An extremely terrifying scene appeared in everyone's hearts. Open it and take a look. Lin Xian raised his palm, preparing to blast away the Five Elements power. He wanted to see what kind of monster was in this house. However, the next moment, the sound of chewing in the room disappeared. Not only that, but the door of the room also opened with a creak. The power of the Five Elements was withdrawn, and the Five Elements sect disciple from before walked out. However, his complexion was somewhat pale and his hair was rather messy. Other than that, nothing else could be seen. Are you all right? Gu Santong asked in a low voice. As for the Five Elements sect's disciple, he coldly snorted, "What could possibly happen to me? How laughable." Hearing this, Lin Xian and Gu Santong frowned. Lu Mingyue's pupils constricted. This was because through the Five Elements sect's disciple, she saw that there was a pool of blood on the floor of the house. It was bright red and had not solidified at all. It was obvious that it had just fallen. What's with this blood? There really was a battle here. Lu Mingyue was shocked. She quickly sent a voice transmission to Lin Xian. Although she had been captured by Lin Xian, they were now in the same boat. Moreover, she was now sealed and did not have much power. Therefore, she needed Lin Xian's protection. Immediately, she told Lin Xian about this strange matter. Lin Xian's eyes also flashed. He had also discovered that there was indeed blood. However, the 5-element sect's disciple in front of him did not seem to have any abnormalities. Therefore he could only let it go. He shook his head and ignored him. He led everyone away. However, at this moment, the 5-element sect's disciple said, "If you go out now, you will be courting death. In this ancient city, only these ancient houses are safe. The other streets are not safe at all. You may very well be killed by the energy." "What do you mean?" Lin Xian turned his head and asked coldly. The 5-element sect's disciple quickly said, "Nothing. This ancient house is quite big anyway. Why don't you all come in?" Hearing this, Lin Xian frowned. This was because this attitude was different from before. After all, he had a grudge against the 5-element sect. Moreover, this 5-element sect's disciple had shown killing intent towards him previously. If it was not for the fact that this place was not suitable, the other party would have attacked long ago. However, the other party was now inviting him to hide in the house. It was too strange no matter how he looked at it. However, in the next moment he narrowed his eyes. So be it. After all, he was not afraid of the other party's tricks. Therefore he called Gu Santong, Lu Mingyue and the dark red divine dragon. Then the group entered the ancient house. As for the 5-element sect's disciple, he looked at their backs and a strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. In the next moment he also strode into the ancient house and closed the door. Then he used a force to seal it. This ancient house was not big. It was a very ordinary room with some tables and chairs. However, it was very old and had a thick layer of dust accumulated on it. Other than that, there were some miscellaneous items around. Most of them were very old. Moreover, this ancient house was very dark. Especially when the 5-element sect's disciple closed the door, the whole place became even darker. It could even be described as pitch black. However, Lin Xian and the rest were all King Realm experts. This little darkness was nothing to them. Therefore they did not take it to heart. The few of them sat there and waited quietly. They could even vaguely hear the continuous explosions outside. As for the 5-element sect's disciple, he had unknowingly circled behind them. The strange smile at the corner of his mouth became even more obvious. A dark red light even appeared in his eyes. Boom. Another earth-shattering sound was heard. Then Lin Xian felt that the entire ancient house began to shake. Needless to say, it should be the attacks of those peerless beasts that bombarded the interior of the giant city. Everyone was shocked. They did not know when this attack would stop. However, no one noticed the smile at the corner of the 5-element sect's disciple's mouth and the red light in his eyes. In the next moment, something strange happened. The 5-element sect's disciple attacked decisively. His palm carried a terrifying storm and blasted forward. His target was very obvious. It was the sealed Lu Mingyue. Ah! Lu Mingyue felt the energy behind her and screamed. She suddenly turned around. At the same time, a chaotic light appeared between her eyebrows and slashed forward. Boom. Chapter 1801. Although he was hit, he still managed to dodge the fatal blow. This light of chaos was her life-saving measure. It was set up by the elders of the sect for her. It could help her dodge a fatal blow. She did not use it even when she was fighting Lin Xian. She did not expect to use it now. Lin Xian, Gu Santong and the dark red dragon were also shocked. Powerful energy surged from their bodies as they stared at the 5-element sect disciple. Gu Santong waved his hand and used the power of space to pull Lu Mingyue to his side. He also gave her a few elixirs to heal her injuries. On the other hand, Lin Xian's eyes were cold as he stared at the other party. He said coldly, "You really are up to no good. How dare you attack us? However, I really don't understand. Are you out of your mind? How dare you attack us alone? We'll know if we can defeat you after we try." The 5-element sect disciple had a strange smile on his face as a dark red light bloomed in his eyes. Not good. Kid, be careful. He's not the 5-element sect disciple from before. The dark red dragon quickly reminded him. Not the 5-element sect disciple from before? Lin Xian was shocked. He did not know what that meant. However, at that moment, the 5-element school's disciple suddenly attacked. His palm turned into a five-colored palm and slammed down at Lin Xian, covering the sky and earth. The power of the five elements gathered in his palm, forming a terrifying light storm. The five elements sect disciple was very decisive. Without any hesitation he attacked Lin Xian. To be honest, Lin Xian was also surprised. His name had spread throughout the primeval forest. Other than the top few prodigies, no one dared to attack him. Now, a five-element sect disciple actually dared to attack him. It seemed like he did not know what was good for him. With a cold harumph, Lin Xian threw out a punch. Boom. The fist and palm collided. A low sound was heard. However, this time Lin Xian was even more surprised. He even showed a hint of doubt. He realized that his opponent could actually fight against him. This was simply inconceivable. One had to know that his current combat strength belonged to the top batch here. Even sealed almighties were no match for him. But now, the other party was actually able to contend against him, which really surprised him. The five-element sect's disciple was also taken aback. A red light flashed in his eyes. "Brat, I didn't expect you to have some skills. You were actually able to block my move." Upon hearing this, Lin Xian frowned and said coldly, "You're not from the five-element sect. Who are you?" The people of the five-element sect did not dare to speak to him like this, but the other party did not seem to care at all. Therefore he was definitely not from the five-element sect. Dead people don't need to know so much. The five-element sect's disciple coldly snorted and once again moved towards Lin Xian. As the two exchanged blows, each strike was like a clap of thunder. The more Lin Xian thought about it, the more shocked he became. His opponent's battle prowess was too strong, and he couldn't help but take this seriously. So in the next moment he pulled out the Nine Serenities demon sword. Sword Chi soared into the sky and then he stabbed out. Buzz. A resplendent light shocked the sky. This sword was extremely sharp. Clang. The black demon sword seemed to have collided with a mountain. It pierced through the opponent's palm, leaving a bloody hole on it. "You're courting death." The five-element sect's disciple's expression finally changed. He did not expect the other party's sword chi to be so terrifying that it could pierce through his palm. So in the next moment he roared angrily. The power in his body suddenly erupted and surged fiercely towards Lin Xian and the others. Lin Xian's expression was solemn. He retreated rapidly and completely left the ancient house, arriving on the street. "Brat, you dare to hurt me? I'll kill you." The five-element sect's disciple's expression was ferocious. His eyes were still emitting a red light. The scene was extremely terrifying. "You're not from the five-element sect. Who are you?" Lin Xian pointed his sword forward and asked coldly. He realized that the other party was too strange, especially that pair of eyes. They were even more terrifying than a malicious spirit. The people of the five-element sect should not have such an aura. Moreover, there were screams and sounds of bones being chewed in the ancient house. He guessed that the five-element sect's disciple had been killed long ago. As for this person, who was he? Hearing Lin Xian's cold roar, the five-element sect's disciple sneered and did not answer. His 5 fingers formed a claw and the wound quickly healed. Then he slapped forward. Boom. The terrifying palm landed and the surrounding void cracked. The entire space even trembled violently. The five-element sect's disciple's palm shone brightly as he grabbed at Lin Xian. "Humph, if you don't speak, I'll beat you until you reveal your true form." Lin Xian snorted coldly. He waved the 9 darkness demonic sword and attacked quickly. The terrifying sword chi was like a huge black mountain. It fell quickly and collided with the opponent's palm. Boom, boom, boom. An earth-shattering sound rang out, and the entire street shook violently. The two of them each took a step back and their eyes were filled with shock. Not only Lin Xian but even Gu Santong, Lu Mingyue and the dark red divine dragon were shocked. They knew Lin Xian's strength. He was a terrifying elite, and yet he was able to fight to a standstill. They had to admit that it was too shocking. What a troublesome person. But do you think that I can't deal with you just like that? Lin Xian sneered. The sword chi on his body surged, and the dragon sword territory quickly appeared and shrouded the opponent. Then thousands of sword chi turned into flowing light and pierced forward. This attack was too terrifying. The sword chi that filled the sky was extremely sharp. It was densely packed and it blew up everything in front of it. In front of them, in the explosion of the energy vortex, a piercing scream rang out. The scream was ear-piercing and it made everyone's scalp tingle. In the next moment, a figure walked out of the storm. However, the clothes on his body were still torn. Not only that, there were many wounds on his body revealing his dark skin. The Five Elements sect's disciple grabbed at the skin on his body, and a piece of human skin was torn off. What? Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. Lu Mingyue's face was pale and she felt like vomiting. It was too disgusting. Can you imagine someone tearing off all the skin on their body with 5 fingers? This was the situation now. Indeed, the Five Elements sect's disciple was no longer a person but a ghost. At this moment, his body was red and black, and there was even blood flowing from his body. He looked like a monster. The human skin fell to the ground, stained with blood. It was extremely strange. The ghost's eyes shone with a terrifying red light. His entire body was covered with a sinister ghostly aura. It was extremely terrifying and it made one's scalp tingle. Chapter 1802. You really aren't human. Lin Xian was shocked. His expression was cold as he realized that his guess was right. The other party was not a disciple of the Five Elements sect, but an unknown creature. It was very likely that it was a creature that existed in the Giant Bone City. Thinking of this, his expression became serious because the other party's strength was not weak at all. Now that it had taken off its disguise, how strong would it be? The Giant Bone City was indeed too strange. How could such a malicious spirit appear here? The malicious spirit roared and turned into a bolt of lightning again, pouncing toward Lin Xian. Lin Xian also used the Heavenly Dragon's 8 steps and rushed upward like lightning. The two of them fought fiercely. Their battle was very fierce and fast. From afar, it looked like 2 flashes of light were constantly colliding in the air. Boom. Suddenly Lin Xian's figure flashed. The 9 darkness demonic sword in his hand was shining with lightning and fire, which was very dazzling. Lightning and fire, the most yang energy in the world, had a strong restraining effect on ghost martial artists. Now that Lin Xian had used it, he naturally wanted to restrain the other party. Whoosh. As the sword slashed down, the lightning and fire sword chi flashed quickly and fiercely slashed down from the sky, bringing with it a strong storm. There was a strong yang energy. It was as if it could destroy all ghosts and demons. Seeing that the sword was filled with the most yang energy, the malicious spirit's expression changed. The red light in his eyes shone even brighter. His body quickly dodged and formed a pitch-black space around him. Whoosh, whoosh. This black domain was very strange. It had a cold aura of death and could even devour everything. The lightning and fire sword slashed down and collided with the black domain, making the sound of ice and fire mixing. As for the surrounding void, it started to vibrate violently like a painting. Suddenly, a terrifying crack appeared in the pitch-black domain, revealing the malicious spirit within. In the next moment, the sword chi slashed on the other party's body and tore a terrible wound. Drip, drip. Black blood fell from the sky and dripped on the ground. The malicious ghost let out a furious roar and transformed into a dark cloud. It instantly fled into the distance and disappeared. Lin Xian looked at the fleeing figure and did not give chase. Instead he frowned. This was simply too shocking. What kind of creature could have black blood? He didn't know. However, he knew that the other party was definitely not human. Everyone be careful. This place is too strange. Don't be careless, Gu Santong said in a low voice. However, at this time, several miserable cries sounded from the distance again. They were extremely mournful, tearing through the void. Hearing this voice, the few of them frowned, then quickly ran into the distance. In the next moment, they saw a king with half his body torn apart and covered in blood. He was being gnawed to death by a pitch-black monster. It was the same situation again. From the looks of it, there was more than one malicious ghost-like monster. It was spread throughout the entire White Bone City. It wasn't safe outside, but it wasn't safe inside the city either. Boom. A great battle erupted because more than one malicious spirit-like creature appeared. Their figures appeared on several streets. Among them, some of the weaker kings were directly killed by the malicious ghosts. The more powerful king realm cultivators would fight against them. One of the battles was extremely intense. It was a human who was surrounded by dazzling halos. It was as if he had been blessed by the gods and was extremely terrifying. His entire body was surging with holy light. Each ray was like a monstrous wave. The Alcade Saint. Many kings saw this scene from afar and exclaimed in surprise. Lin Xian also narrowed his eyes and looked from afar. He had to admit that the other party was indeed an extremely powerful figure. Even from so far away he could feel the overwhelming aura from the other party. The terrifying power contained in the palm shadows could easily crush a 6-star king. After beating the malicious ghost away with one palm, the Alcade Saint seemed to have sensed Lin Xian's gaze and turned his head to look at him. Bus, bus, bus. Their gazes clashed in the air, causing small cracks to appear in the void. Seeing this scene, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. There was someone who could compete with the Alcade Saint. This was unbelievable. The next moment they turned their heads to look. When they saw Lin Xian, everyone was shocked because they also recognized Lin Xian. This kid is too terrifying. He can actually compete with the Alcade Saint. He's a killing god. Don't provoke him. Discussions broke out one after another. They had seen Lin Xian's means. Previously, Lu Mingyue had led so many kings to chase after him, but they were all killed by him. One could imagine how terrifying he was. They were even secretly calling Lin Xian a killing god. The Alcade Saint was also surprised. He did not expect that the other party could resist his gaze. However, the next moment he turned his head with a cold expression. His entire body flickered with light and turned into a stream of light, disappearing from the street. Other than the Alcade Saint, the others were also fighting because those malicious ghosts were very strange. Most of them had crawled out of the ancient houses. Boom. Another earth-shattering voice rang out, attracting everyone's attention. Who was he? How could he fight two malicious ghosts? Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. He seemed to be the genius of the Yi family. So powerful. He's fighting two malicious ghosts alone. This means that he's even more powerful than the Alcade Saint, right? How can he be more powerful than the Alcade Saint? The Alcade Saint didn't encounter two malicious ghosts. Otherwise, he would definitely be able to deal with them easily. Discussions broke out one after another. Obviously, they were also shocked by the scene in front of them. Lin Xian also turned his head and saw Yi Wudao. The expert in front of him who was fighting two malicious ghosts alone was Yi Wudao. There was no bright light on his body, and his fist technique was very simple. However, the effect was indeed very terrifying. He punched out, simple and unadorned. However, the entire void exploded, and even the black palm of the malicious ghost was blown apart. When everyone saw this scene, they were all stunned and could not believe it. They had seen how powerful the malicious ghost was. It was terrifying. Ordinary six-star kings were not a match for it at all. But now, someone could actually injure it with a punch. This was too shocking. What kind of fist technique is that? It's so terrifying. Who knows? This fist technique looks very ordinary, but I didn't expect it to be so powerful. Many kings exclaimed in surprise. However, there were some almighties who frowned. He's a disciple of the Yi family. The Yi family is an ancient family. They even had a great emperor. Yeah, even in the era where there were no great emperors, there were sacred bodies. Chapter 1803. What? A holy physique. Upon hearing the words constitution, the crowd felt their scalps go numb and shock filled their faces. However, an elder shook his head. No way. That kind of physique is extremely rare. Even the Yi family has only produced a few in all these years. If there was one, would the Yi family be willing to let him come to such a dangerous place? Is it dangerous here? Before entering, no one knew that this place was dangerous. They all thought that there were countless treasures in this mystic world. Someone sneered. Hearing this, everyone fell silent. Indeed, no one knew that this mystic world was extremely dangerous. Only when they entered did they realize that they had entered a place of great danger. Could it be that he really was a holy physique of the Yi family? A holy physique. Hearing this, Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. He had also heard of this physique. It was an extremely terrifying physique in the eastern wilderness. It was rumored that this mysterious physique was not only extremely strong, but also extremely strong in defense. It had incredible magical powers. He did not expect Yi Wudao to have such a physique. On the side, Gu Santong's eyes flashed. He was extremely serious. As a disciple of a clan of the ancients, he knew how terrifying this physique was. At the same time, he whispered to himself, our Gu family also has a divine physique. I wonder which one is stronger compared to the holy physique? Other than the Alcade Saint and Yi Wudao, there were a few people who displayed even more terrifying power. At first glance, it was obvious that they were almighties whose cultivation had been suppressed. One of them was wrapped in a silver light. It was impossible to see whether he was real or not. However, he was facing 5 evil spirits at the same time and sent them flying with one palm. This kind of method was simply too terrifying. It had even far exceeded everyone's understanding. However, the silver figure disappeared in a flash and was never seen again. This allowed everyone to breathe a sigh of relief. This was because if such a person appeared in front of them, it would have a negative impact on the balance of the situation. Seeing the silver figure, Lin Xian frowned. He did not expect such an expert to be hidden among the human martial artists. On the other hand, Gu Santong's expression was solemn. It could even be said that he was very ugly. "What's wrong, Brother Gu?" Lin Xian also noticed this, so he asked. "Nothing much. I just feel that the silver figure from before has something to do with the Almighty who was chasing after me." To be honest, Gu Santong could not be completely sure, but the aura on the other party's body gave him a familiar feeling. That was why he had such suspicions. However, now that the other party had left, he heaved a sigh of relief. Whoa! Just as everyone was shocked by the silver figure, a low voice suddenly came from the distant ancient house. It was as if a malicious spirit was weeping. This voice made one's scalp tingle. The next moment, an extremely cold and gloomy aura came from the ancient house in front of him. Whoosh! The entire street was covered in a layer of gray smoke, making the visibility of the surroundings very low. The chilly wind that blew on his body was abnormally cold. Whoosh! All of a sudden, a gray light flashed and streaked across the sky. Then, a scream rang out from among the human ancient martial art practitioners. Shortly after, the screaming king was quickly dragged into the ancient house in front of them. Crack! Crack! What followed was the sound of bones being chewed. Ghost, it's really a ghost. Everyone's scalp went numb when they saw this scene. This was too terrifying. There must be an extremely terrifying malicious spirit in front of them. This was because they did not even see the other party's movements before a king was killed. In other words, the other party's strength had completely surpassed theirs. In an instant, everyone was extremely nervous, as if they were facing a great enemy. If the malicious spirit in front of them attacked again, would they be able to withstand it? However, at this critical moment, a laugh came from afar. What a powerful ghost king. I didn't expect to meet one here. This thing is very nutritious for me. Everyone's scalp tingled when they heard this voice. Someone actually dared to target the ghost king in front of them. Did they want to die? However, what shocked them even more was that the person who spoke was a human ancient martial art practitioner. Since when did such a powerful ancient martial art practitioner appear among the humans? Could it be the silver figure from before? Everyone turned their heads to look in all directions, trying to find the person who spoke. The ghost king in the ancient house also seemed to be roaring in anger. It shot out dozens of gray lights that pierced through the void. After a cold snort, countless human figures quickly appeared. Finally, they turned into a human figure and appeared on the street. However, in the next moment, everyone was stunned. That was because they realized that the human figure was too strange. That was because the person who appeared was not a powerful elder as everyone had imagined. Instead, it was a child who was only 8 or 9 years old. The child had delicate features and looked very cute. There was even a trace of immaturity on his face. If one did not know better, they would have thought that he was a child of some family. However, the other party appeared here. That meant that the other party was at least a king. However, was the other party a peerless genius who had become a king at the age of 8 or 9? Or was it some old monster who had cultivated a special cultivation technique that caused his body to age and reach the level of a child? Everyone did not know, but thinking about it, the latter was more likely. As soon as the child appeared, he said with a smile, "You think you can hurt me? What a joke." As he said that, he waved his hand and spiritual power gathered, forming a huge palm of light that blasted forward. Wherever it passed, countless cracks appeared on the street. That was too unbelievable. They knew that the ground was very hard, but the child's palm could actually cause damage. It was too shocking. Boom. That palm directly shattered the dozens of lights in the sky, turning them into specks of light that scattered all over the ground. Not only that, the resplendent palm of light continued to blast towards the ancient house in front of it, as if it wanted to kill the ghost king directly. Another furious roar was heard. Then a pitch-black palm reached out and grabbed forward. In the next moment, it collided with the resplendent palm of light. The collision of the two was earth-shattering. Then they dissipated into the void at the same time. "You're quite capable, but you won't be able to escape from me today." The child's face darkened. Although his voice was immature, a terrifying aura was emitted from his body. There was even a hint of vicissitudes in his eyes. Obviously he was not a child but an old monster. Whoosh! The child's body flickered and appeared in front of the ancient house. His tender little hand contained an incomparably terrifying power as he grabbed forward. In the next moment, he and the Ghost King engaged in an earth-shattering battle. Everyone's scalps went numb when they saw that. However, they did not retreat. Instead, they observed carefully. That was because they also wanted to see if the child could subdue the Ghost King. Not long after, an extremely cold aura suddenly came from the void, and a silver light ruthlessly slashed towards the child. Chapter 1804. This silver light came very suddenly without any warning. As soon as it appeared, it turned into a stream of light and slashed towards the child. Umph. The child snorted and disappeared from where he was, dodging the attack by a hair's breadth. Then his childish face turned serious. 2 rays of light shot out from his eyes as he stared at the void. Emo-chanchi, get the hell out here. Don't hide anymore. His voice was filled with murderous intent. What? Emo-chanchi. Everyone was shocked and in disbelief. They looked around with their eyes wide open. They knew Emo-chanchi's name. He was a peerless almighty who had killed the elder of the Wavering Light Sacred Ground. It could be said that his name had spread across the entire eastern wilderness. Now that his name appeared here, did he come in too? Many people were shocked. Lin Xian looked even more serious. Among these people, he had the deepest relationship with Emo-chanchi. Emo-chanchi was once the sect leader of the Elixir sect, and he was a disciple of the Elixir sect. He had witnessed Emo-chanchi's betrayal with his own eyes. Emo-chanchi had been looking for the heavenly secret divine eyes. But now, the heavenly secret divine eyes were with him, so the relationship between the two was very complicated. At this moment, Lin Xian decided that he could not use the heavenly secret divine eyes here. Otherwise, he would not be able to escape if Emo-chanchi found out. Although this space suppressed almighties and sealed their cultivation, Emo-chanchi was not an ordinary almighty. However, Emo-chanchi was no ordinary almighty. He was a peerless almighty. His strength was terrifying. Who knew how powerful he was now? Lin Xian was secretly on guard. On the other side, the void fluctuated and a silver light shone. Then, a handsome and evil young man appeared in front of everyone. He was dressed in white, holding a folding fan in his hand and a jade flute at his waist. He was very handsome. If they did not know, they would think that he was a young master. But everyone knew that he was a peerless almighty who was extremely terrifying. Emo-chanchi, it's you. The 8 or 9-year-old child stared ahead and said coldly, "You betrayed the sacred hall, and you still dare to appear here? Today I will eliminate you on behalf of the sacred hall." The child exuded killing intent. Saint Hall? What Saint Hall? The surrounding people were puzzled. They had never heard of it before. And it seemed that Emo-chanchi and that child were both from the Saint Hall. If this was true, then this Saint Hall was too terrifying. But why had they never heard of it before? They didn't even get any information about it. Lin Xian was also puzzled. He asked the dark red divine dragon, but it shook its head. The dark red divine dragon did not know about the sacred hall either. You think you can kill me? How laughable. Emo-chanchi shook his head slightly. You're neither human nor ghost. What are you doing here instead of staying in Nanjiang? This is my business. You don't need to know. The 8 or 9-year-old child snorted coldly, his expression abnormally cold. Do you think you can deal with me now that you've come out? I don't know if I can deal with you, but I can stop you from subduing this Ghost King. The corner of Emo-chanchi's mouth curled up slightly. Then an extremely terrifying aura surged from his body. Boom. In the next moment he attacked mercilessly. Terrifying energy flowed forward. At the same time, the Ghost King also attacked at the same time, attacking the 8 or 9-year-old child together. The child snorted coldly. Then he waved his hand and a black scroll appeared in his hand. In the next moment, the black scroll fluttered in the wind. A sky full of black light scattered in all directions, blocking the shocking attacks of Emo-chanchi and the Ghost King. Then 2 short black sticks appeared in his hands. He kept hitting them. Clang, clang, clang. A low sound reverberated in the surroundings, making everyone's hair stand on end. Buzz. Just as everyone was wondering what the other party was up to, a figure suddenly flew over from afar. In the next moment he arrived beside the 8 or 9-year-old child. When everyone saw this scene, they went crazy. Even Lin Xian was extremely shocked. This was because the figure that appeared in front of them was none other than the burial goods that appeared at the entrance of the Palace of Bones. Weren't these burial goods supposed to be fighting with the demonic beasts outside? Why were they here? And from the looks of it, they seemed to be very respectful to the child. Could there be some connection between the two? The figure in front had a dull expression. He was wearing an ancient battle robe, and his entire body was emitting a monstrous aura of death. He was like a divine spear that stood there and people could only look up to him. Emo Tianqi did not attack. His figure flashed and he retreated into the distance, his cold eyes flickering. Looks like your corpse controlling technique has become much stronger. You can even move this kind of ancient burial object. I have to say, I really underestimated you. Don't you think it's a little late for you to realize this now? The child sneered. Attacking me in this place is your biggest mistake. However, when he heard this, Emo Tianqi looked up to the sky and laughed. His eyes were filled with disdain. Taimu Xuan, do you really think that a mere burial item can trap me? And this place is not only beneficial to you but also to me. In the next moment he put away the folding fan in his hand and pulled out the jade flute from his waist. Then he gently placed it beside his mouth. Oh. A strange sound echoed in the surroundings. Soon, countless miserable cries could be heard in the distance. Then 5 or 6 dark figures rushed over. Malicious ghosts. When everyone saw this scene, their scalps went numb and their eyes widened. Could Emo Tianqi control malicious ghosts? In the next moment they realized that it was true. The 5 or 6 malicious ghosts returned to Emo Tianqi's side. They were very respectful like servants. Emo Tianqi waved his sleeve and immediately, the malicious ghosts rushed forward as if they had gone mad. Not only that, but more malicious ghosts were rushing over. The Ghost King also became abnormally irritable. A great battle broke out. Both of them were extremely powerful. Although they were suppressed and sealed, the means they displayed were too terrifying. Not only that, but both of them were extremely powerful. One of them could control the corpse of an ancient king, and the other could control the malicious ghosts here. The two's techniques were simply too terrifying, causing the surrounding kings to continuously retreat in fear. Clang. When a powerful wave of energy spread to the surroundings, all the kings retreated. Let's go. Lin Xian also retreated decisively. If he stayed here, it was very likely that he would be discovered by Emo Tianqi. That would be too disadvantageous for him. In fact, Lin Xian knew that Emo Tianqi might have discovered him long ago. He just did not know why Emo Tianqi did not make a move. Chapter 1805. In fact, Lin Xian was right. Emo Tianqi had noticed Lin Xian long ago, but for some reason he could not attack him directly. Emo Tianqi had resurrected Ouyang Feng and a few other strong cultivators and asked them to attack. He did not expect them to fail. After that, he discovered other secrets in the primordial forest and couldn't be bothered with Lin Xian for a while. Now that he was fighting with someone else, he could not care less. On the other side, Gu Santong's expression was cold. He realized that Emo Tianqi was the one chasing after him. He did not know why Emo Tianqi was chasing after him, but no matter what the reason was, he was in a bad situation. Even if he was a genius disciple of a clan of the ancients and a dazzling genius, it would be difficult for him to escape from being targeted by an almighty. For a moment, everyone retreated. However, a stream of light flashed in the crowd, and then a figure surrounded by divine light appeared. Yao Guang Sage. Many people exclaimed. It seemed that Yao Guang was going to attack. However, they did not know who he was targeting. In the next moment, everyone exclaimed because they realized that Yao Guang Sage had his eyes on Yi Wudao. That's right, Yao Guang Sage had his eyes on Yi Wudao. He came in front of Yi Wudao, and his whole body emitted a bright light. Yi Clan's sage body, do you dare to fight me? Yao Guang Sage's voice was cold and powerful. Humph, why wouldn't I dare? Yi Wudao was not afraid at all. His body emitted a terrifying power that caused the void to distort rapidly. Boom. The two young geniuses fought together and the earth cracked. The kings around them ran even faster. Lin Xian and Gu Santong also retreated quickly. When the two of them joined forces, nothing could stop them and no one dared to attack them. In the next moment, Lin Xian, Gu Santong, and the others walked into the depths of the White-Bone City. Soon Lin Xian and the others arrived at the depths of the White-Bone City. It was even quieter here. The loud roar in the distance had become so soft that it could not be heard. There were many ancient buildings around, but no one dared to enter because they were afraid of attracting more powerful ghosts. As they walked forward, the area in front of them gradually widened. There weren't so many buildings and instead, a huge plaza was formed. There was actually a huge sword in the square. A giant sword that reached the heavens. Lin Xian was astonished. He realized that the huge sword in front of him was very similar to the huge sword that came out of the Sea of Bones outside. However, why was there such a gigantic sword in White-Bone City? However, what was even stranger was that there were mysterious Dao runes on the giant sword that continued to spread throughout the area. Even the entire plaza was covered in those Tao patterns. It was a very peculiar imitation of some kind of sacrificial offering in ancient times. What was the use of this huge sword and what was it for? Why would it appear in the giant bone city? Lin Xian and the others were very confused. Many people were extremely curious. They walked forward, preparing to investigate. Lin Xian, Gu Santong and the rest also walked forward. They blended into the crowd and walked forward. Many of those people came to the vicinity of the enormous sword, but nothing happened. However, the moment Lin Xian stepped onto the square, the entire square began to tremble. The huge sword in front of him suddenly shook. Countless Tao runes flashed on it, and then condensed into a shocking sword light. It exploded from the huge sword and swept out in all directions. What's going on? What happened? Everyone was shocked. They did not expect the huge sword to suddenly change. The martial artists at the front were directly swept by the sword light and were sent flying. For a moment, everyone was bewildered. They didn't dare to step forward because this was too strange. Lin Xian was also shocked. Could the huge sword's change be related to him? Or was it related to the great dragon sword soul in his body? He did not know, but he knew that it must be related. Therefore, in the next moment he walked forward again. Buzz! The huge sword shone brightly. Then the Tao runes seemed to come alive and emitted an even more peculiar light. Some of them even formed strange Tao runes as if to express something to the crowd. This is. Many kings were shocked. They realized that it was very likely a powerful martial technique. Therefore, in the next moment they all focused on observing. However, although these Tao runes were strange, they were very obscure. These people looked at them for a long time, but they did not understand what they meant. Gu Santong looked at the Tao runes in front of him, his eyes flashing. Previously, when he was outside, he had spent a long time comprehending the huge sword near Gu Hai. Now that he saw the huge sword again, he did not feel unfamiliar with it. Therefore, he walked to a suitable place and silently comprehended it. Lin Xian's eyes also flashed as he engraved the Tao runes in his mind. Although he could not fully comprehend them now, he believed that as long as he continued to comprehend them, he would definitely be able to comprehend something. The huge sword flashed. Not only was Lin Xian and the others shocked, but even Mo Tianqi, the Alcade Sage son, and the others who were fighting in the distance were startled. However, Mo Tianqi and the 8 or 9-year-old child were engaged in an intense battle and did not rush over. However, the Alcade Sage son and Yi Wudao stopped and did not continue fighting. Instead, they quickly rushed over. The arrival of the Alcade Sage son and Yi Wudao attracted everyone's attention. Many people woke up from their comprehensions and looked behind them. They wanted to know who had won this battle. However, judging from their expressions, they are both calm. Seems to be a draw. There is no clear victor. Perhaps the battle was too short. It is impossible to determine the victor in a short period of time when experts of this level fight. Discussions broke out one after another. But no matter what the outcome was, both of them were top-notch existences. Yi Wudao and the Alcade Sage son clearly did not notice the discussions. Their gazes were focused on the huge sword in front of them. As they looked ahead, their eyes flashed with resplendent light. Yi Wudao was like a god of war as he strode forward. Soon he chose a place and silently comprehended. On the other side, the Alcade Sage son also snorted coldly and walked forward. Everywhere he passed, the kings around him quickly dodged. But soon he frowned because he realized that there was a figure who dared to block his path. When the surrounding cultivators saw this, they immediately started whispering. Someone actually dares to block the Alcade Sage son? He is really courting death. Yeah. Isn't that person too bold? What do you know? That brat is a demon king. This is going to be interesting. Chapter 1806. Many people recognized Lin Xian. Naturally, they also knew that Lin Xian's strength was extremely terrifying. The Alcade Saint was even more terrifying. If the two of them fought, it would definitely be a fierce battle. To be honest, Lin Xian did not pay attention to the Alcade Saint at all. All his energy was now focused on the giant sword in front of him. The Alcade Saint stopped in his tracks with a gloomy face. A fierce light flashed in his eyes. Someone actually dared not to make way for him. He was courting death. With a cold snort, the Alcade Saint raised his hand and shot out a dazzling light that quickly rushed forward. Feeling the fierce attack, Lin Xian woke up from his enlightenment. Then his face darkened. Get lost. With a roar, Lin Xian threw out a punch. The terrifying fist was shining with a black light. It was like a huge black dragon rushing forward rapidly. In the next moment it collided with the fierce attack. Boom. An earth-shattering sound was heard. Then the fierce attack exploded instantly. Lin Xian turned around and stared coldly at the Alcade Saint. "Why did you sneak an attack on me? Give me an explanation. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." Hearing this, the surrounding people gasped. Their faces were filled with disbelief. They did not expect Lin Xian to attack the Alcade Saint. The Alcade Saint said coldly, "I've taken a liking to this place. Leave quickly. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences." Lin Xian snorted. "You're really arrogant. Do you really think you're invincible?" As he spoke, he threw out a punch. A black fist appeared in the void. Like a raging dragon, it blasted forward. Boom. The space trembled. The black fist exuded an extremely violent aura. It was like a vast sea that swept through the entire space. Boom. Some of the surrounding kings could not withstand this aura and knelt on the ground. Their bodies trembled and their eyes were filled with horror. It was too terrifying. They could not withstand this power at all. The Alcade Saint also frowned. He realized that the strength of his opponent was beyond his expectations. However, in the next moment he also acted decisively. He stretched out his palm, bringing with it a holy radiance that filled the sky. It was as though the palm of a demon god was pressing down rapidly. The palm was condensed from spiritual power, and it carried a terrifying power that could easily kill a 6-star king. In the next moment the two collided. Boom. Boom. An earth-shattering sound rang out as boundless light surrounded the area, forming a gigantic pillar of light that shot straight into the clouds. Fortunately, the White Bone City was abnormally tough, and there were mysterious Dao runes floating around the square, preventing it from being affected. Otherwise, just a single strike from the two of them would be enough to completely destroy this place. After the attack, Lin Xian stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his whole body emitting the aura of spiritual power. Facing the Alcade Saint, he was extremely strong. The surrounding people widened their eyes in disbelief. They didn't expect Lin Xian to be able to contend with the Alcade Saint. This was simply inconceivable. The Alcade Saint also frowned. He didn't expect Lin Xian to be able to block his attack. This was indeed beyond his expectations. One should know that he was a saint, and his strength was extremely terrifying. Not many people in the younger generation could contend with him. Lin Xian was neither a genius of the clan of the ancients nor a saint of the peerless sanctuary. How could he block his attack? Before this he had never seen such a thing. "Boy, I have to say that you have indeed exceeded my expectations. You are worthy of my attack. However, it is obviously unwise for you to do so. You will end up miserable if you fight with me." Cut the crap. "I want to see what right do you have to ask me to get lost today?" Lin Xian snorted coldly, and the aura on his body suddenly erupted. He was too angry. Originally, he was comprehending here and didn't pay attention to Lin Xian at all. However, Lin Xian didn't even ask about the truth and directly attacked him, which was intolerable. Therefore he must teach Lin Xian a lesson today. So what if Lin Xian was the Alcade Saint? If he dared to provoke him, he would still beat him up. Seeing Lin Xian's domineering attitude, the Alcade Saint's face darkened. Even Yi Wudao didn't dare to treat him like this. But now, an unknown boy dared to look down on him, which made him want to kill him. In the next moment, the holy light on his body shone even brighter. He was like a holy light emissary, emitting endless light. Holy light palm. With a wave of his palm, the entire sky was illuminated. It was like a resplendent sun that pressed forward. In the face of the Alcade Saint's powerful attack, Lin Xian was not afraid. He threw out a punch and the black fist drew a strange arc in the air. The sky was filled with black light. It was extremely terrifying and collided with the holy palm. The light shone and a sonorous sound spread in all directions. The surrounding kings trembled and were almost killed by this energy. At the same time, a huge light spread out in all directions where the two of them collided. Everyone was shocked and sucked in a breath of cold air because they discovered that Lin Xian was really able to contend against the Alcade Saint's son. Not only that, the two of them directly fought. On the square, the two figures were like lightning, constantly exchanging blows. Every time they collided, the void would explode, and a terrifying black hole would appear. The two of them were so powerful that the crowd could only catch some blurry shadows. Only Gu Santong, Yi Wudao, and the older generation figures, as well as the mighty figures who had been suppressed, could clearly watch the entire battle. However, these people's faces were also extremely solemn because the two of them were like gods of war, blooming with light. The powerful force suppressed all directions, making them feel uncomfortable. They were frightened. Lin Xian was fighting the Alcade Saint. He was extremely powerful and was not at a disadvantage at all. He was like a raging dragon. The destructive black dragon scroll opened and closed, constantly bombarding. Heavens, who is that boy? Is he also a saint of a large sect? It's very possible. Maybe he's hiding his identity. Otherwise, no one else can compete with the Alcade Saint. Everyone was shocked because they realized that Lin Xian's strength was too terrifying. Boom. Terrifying light surged out, and Lin Xian's fist was like a black mountain, directly sweeping forward. The shocking black aura quickly intertwined and rushed towards the Alcade Saint. Boom. 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 Every black light was extremely huge, like a mountain. It was as if a true dragon had appeared in the world. The void was like a painting that was ruthlessly torn apart in an instant, and terrifying energy filled every inch of space. The Alcade Saint used the Saint Light technique to resist with all his might. However, his expression was extremely solemn and could even be said to be shocked. Chapter 1807. However, his expression was solemn and even shocked. He had never thought that the other party would be able to contend with him for such a long time. One had to know that only saints and other prodigies could compete with him. However, the other party was not famous at all. He had never even heard of him. This meant that the other party was definitely not a disciple of a sacred land. However, the other party had a heaven-defying combat strength and was able to fight evenly with him. It was truly shocking. At the same time, it also made him extremely angry. The next moment, he clasped his hands together, and the light on his body rose again. A powerful and terrifying force surged out like a tsunami. Boom. The entire world trembled violently in an instant as a terrifying force slammed in all directions. The surrounding kings frantically retreated, their eyes filled with fear. Lin Xian also moved away and distanced himself. What? The Alcade Saint's aura has become stronger again? How terrifying. Could it be that the Alcade Saint didn't use his full strength before? That must be it. No wonder that kid could hold on for so long. It seems that the Alcade Saint went easy on him previously. I'm afraid that kid is definitely not having a good time now. He might even be defeated immediately. Discussions broke out one after another. Obviously, they were shocked by the power that the Alcade Saint had displayed. Lin Xian also narrowed his eyes and stopped attacking. He said in a low voice, "You really did hide your strength. Since you know, why don't you obediently surrender? Kneel by the side. Otherwise when I attack you'll really die." The Alcade Saint's voice was very cold. Lin Xian laughed. "Do you think that you're the only one who hid your strength?" As he spoke, he clenched his fist and pulled out the 9 darkness demonic sword from the void. The originally violent black aura on his body instantly transformed into terrifying sword chi that shot into the sky. Those sword lights were so sharp that they seemed to be able to break through the heavens and slash through the 9 darkness. Some of the kings even began to tremble uncontrollably. What a terrifying sword chi. That kid actually hid his strength too. Heavens, how is that possible? How can he be so powerful? Kill. In the square, Lin Xian coldly snorted. He quickly waved the 9 Hell Devil sword, and streaks of sword light fell like the Milky Way. The radiance was boundless and endless. Tens of thousands of sword chi rushed into the clouds, shocking everyone. Clang, clang. The Alcade Saint also snorted coldly and used the Saint Light technique to fight back. Above his left hand, boundless radiance condensed, forming a huge light shield. On top of it there was an image of the sun which was extremely dazzling. Holy Light Shield. The Alcade Saint held a huge light shield in his hand, resisting the sword chi that filled the sky. Clang, clang, clang. A terrifying vibration sounded, tearing the void apart. The divine light shield in the hands of the Alcade Holy Sun dimmed instantly. However, the Alcade Saint let out a furious roar as countless saint lights gushed out from his body. It quickly replenished the divine light shield. This caused the divine light shield to shine once more. Not only that, but all kinds of strange runes shone on the holy light shield this time, blocking the sword chi. On the other side, Lin Xian held the demon sword in his hand. He was like a god of death, and the more he fought, the braver he became. The 9 underworld demonic sword was pitch black, and the black sword chi was like a crescent wave that slashed forward. Bang! This sword was more terrifying than all the previous sword chi, so even with the Alcade Holy Light Shield, the Alcade Saint was forced to retreat. What? The Alcade Saint was forced to retreat. Everyone opened their mouths wide in disbelief. Although the Alcade Saint was not injured, it was still unbelievable that he was forced to retreat. That was the Alcade Saint. He was definitely a terrifying member of the younger generation. The Alcade Saint was also shocked. He found that his opponent was too powerful. He was not weaker than Yi Wudao. Humph. The next moment he let out an angry roar and his entire person became furious. Two bright rays of light shot out from his eyes like torches, piercing through the void. His entire body was covered with a bright halo that was like a flame, making him look extremely majestic. Not only that, he held the divine light shield in his left hand, and a bright spear appeared in his right hand. The long spear vibrated, and the sky was full of multicolored light, and a terrifying power swept in all directions. Boom. The Alcade Saint finally began to fight back. He stabbed out with his spear, and the bright spear in his hand instantly exploded. The terrifying power was like a torch enveloping Lin Xian. Lin Xian also let out a cold roar, and a shocking sword light burst out from his eyes. He held the demonic sword in his hand and swung it wildly. The two constantly collided, bursting out lightning-like rays of multicolored light that surrounded the surroundings. Soon, 100 moves had passed, and the two of them were unable to determine a winner. They were evenly matched. All the spectators were shocked. They now found that Lin Xian was really too powerful. He was able to be evenly matched with the Alcade Saint. The Alcade Saint was also shocked, and then his face became extremely ugly. However, the next moment he did not attack again. Instead, he waved out a shocking spear light, and then his whole body retreated rapidly. Lin Xian shattered the spear light, but he did not attack. He stared coldly at his opponent. It seemed that the two of them would not be able to determine the result of this battle for a while. Unless they used all their trump cards, but in that case they were afraid that others would benefit. Therefore the two of them would not attack again. The Alcade Saint snorted coldly and ignored Lin Xian. He also did not fight for Lin Xian's position. Instead, he walked in another direction and silently comprehended the giant sword in front of him. Lin Xian put away the demonic sword and also began to comprehend it. The surrounding people were shocked. The battle had happened so suddenly and ended so quickly that no one could react. Outside, the battle between the Peerless Monster King and the Giant Bone City was still going on. The terrifying sound waves were like waves, constantly bombarding. Lin Xian looked at the giant sword in front of him and fell into a strange state. Suddenly, he found that the giant sword in front of him was emitting a bright light. Then the scene in front of him changed. He found that in the square, in addition to the giant sword in front of him, there were 4 more illusory sword shadows. Each of them was indomitable and incomparably huge, emitting a monstrous aura. They suppressed the entire square as if they were sealing something. What's going on? Lin Xian was shocked. He did not expect that there would be 4 illusory sword shadows around him. He turned his head to look around and found that the others were still silently comprehending, as if they did not notice the 4 illusory sword shadows around them. What's going on? Am I the only one who can see it? Now he found that the scene he saw was different from what others saw, which made him very puzzled. But in the next moment he understood. The giant sword in front of him had changed. The shape on it was rapidly changing, forming the appearance of a giant dragon. The dragon head and the sword body were incomparably ferocious. A terrifying murderous aura permeated the 9 heavens and 10 lands. What? That's the great dragon sword. Lin Xian looked at the giant sword in front of him in shock. The appearance of the giant sword was too familiar. His great dragon sword soul could condense that appearance. Could it be that the giant sword in front of me is the great dragon sword? Lin Xian was too shocked. He only had the great dragon sword soul, and the great dragon sword had disappeared in the ancient times. He did not know where it was. But he did not expect to see the great dragon sword body now. If he could obtain the great dragon sword body and merge it with the great dragon sword soul, then his combat strength would be incomparably heaven-defying. However, was the other party the real great dragon sword? He did not know. Moreover, even if it was real, he did not have the ability to subdue the giant sword in front of him. The other party emitted an incomparably terrifying aura, as if it was a real giant dragon. Anyone in front of it would feel insignificant. Lin Xian looked at this scene and was shocked. However, he soon thought of something. If the giant sword in front of him was the great dragon sword, then would the other 4 sword shadows be the other 4 divine swords? Of the 5 swords in the world, other than the great dragon sword, there were 4 other divine swords. So in the next moment, Lin Xian looked at the second sword shadow. It was different from the great dragon sword. The great dragon sword was lifelike and every sword pattern on it could be seen clearly. However, the giant sword next to it was incomparably black, like a black hole, making it impossible to see the real situation. Not only that, the space around it was distorted as if even the light was swallowed. Devouring sword. Lin Xian was shocked. He had seen this kind of divine sword in the hands of Wine Lord. It should be the legendary devouring sword. Lin Xian was too surprised. He found that this was indeed the 5 swords in the world. He just did not expect that these sword shadows would appear in the White Bone City. What was the connection between them? Soon he found something different. This was because he found that below the devouring sword, there was a pattern that connected to the square. It was an incomparably cold place, as if it was the 9 nether hell. The devouring sword was like a black mountain, directly inserted into the demonic earth. In the pattern there were thousands of demons struggling crazily, but all of them fell to the ground. Could it be that the devouring sword suppressed the 9 nether demonic earth? Lin Xian was shocked because he could only see this situation from the pattern. Thinking of the great dragon sword and the White Bone City in front of him, Lin Xian had a bold guess in his heart. Could it be that each of the 5 swords in the world suppressed a forbidden area? But where are those places exactly? Why do they need to be suppressed? Moreover, it is a peerless divine object like the 5 swords in the world. He really could not understand. The third sword shadow was a picture of the 100 forms of life, as if it recorded everything in the world. It also suppressed a forbidden area. It was a continuous mining area, as if there were endless divine treasures buried in it. The fourth sword shadow was even more strange. Around it there were apes and monkeys as well as people who looked like ancient war gods. There were even some figures wearing ancient armor and holding totems in their hands. Not only that, there were also some clothes that Lin Xian was familiar with. It was obvious that they were modern. There were even some strange people that he had never seen before. The fifth sword shadow was a variety of natural scenes. Mountain torrents erupted, heavenly thunder fell. In short, there were some strange phenomena of heaven and earth. The 5 sword shadows were incomparably terrifying. The scenes they brought were all different, but without exception they suppressed a peerless place. This scene caused Lin Xian to be extremely shocked. He knew that these 5 sword shadows represented the 5 swords in the world, although he could not completely recognize them. However, he had a certain understanding of them. The first sword shadow was the Great Dragon Sword. The second sword shadow was the Devourer Sword. The third sword shadow showed the 100 forms of life, which should be the Reincarnation Sword. The one with the ancient, modern, and future should be the legendary Spacetime Sword. Only it could connect the past, present, and future together. The last divine sword that caused the strange phenomena of heaven and earth should be the Heavenly Punishment Sword. Legend had it that the divine sword was related to the way of heaven. Each of the 5 divine swords had incredible power, and could be said to be incomparably mysterious. If these 5 sword shadows appeared in the eastern wilderness, it would definitely make everyone go crazy. Even the peerless sacred grounds and clans of the ancients would go crazy. However, these 5 sword shadows had all appeared, and only Lin Xian could see them. Boom, boom, boom. After an earth-shattering sound, the sword shadows in front of him disappeared. His surroundings changed once again. All of the illusions were quickly disappearing. The great dragon sword soul in Lin Xian's body started to rotate rapidly, and it even roared. At this moment, Lin Xian felt that the great dragon sword soul in his body had formed a connection with the great dragon sword in front of him. A mysterious force gathered in the air, and the spacetime sword shadow that had disappeared reappeared, shining brightly. Buzz! A ray of light rushed out, and with the spacetime sword shadow as the center, it spread out in all directions, and then covered the entire Bone City. In the next moment, Lin Xian and the others felt that time and space had changed, as if they had fallen into a spacetime vortex. Buzz! Buzz! After a long time, Lin Xian opened his eyes. He found that it was quiet around him. He was in a forest and there were stars in the sky. It was abnormally quiet. It's not the Bone City? Lin Xian was shocked. He looked around and found that there were no longer any terrifying sceneries around him, nor were there any deafening explosions. Apparently they had come out. Not only him, but there were also countless figures around him. They were all the kings who had entered the Bone City. At this moment, they were all wild with joy as they looked at their surroundings. We're out, haha, we're finally out. God bless us, we're finally out. Exclamations of surprise could be heard. Obviously, everyone was very excited. After all, the Bone City was an extremely terrifying place. They were extremely lucky to be able to come out. Beside them, the dark red divine dragon also heaved a sigh of relief. Damn it, I was scared to death. I thought we would be trapped in the Bone City and never be able to come out. To be honest, he was really scared. Because he had been sealed for thousands of years, if he was trapped in the Bone City again he might as well kill himself. However, soon the dark red divine dragon became suspicious. Kid, something's not right. Look at this place. What's wrong? Is there something wrong? Lin Xian's heart skipped a beat. This is not the tilted moon world, we can absorb the spiritual qi around us. The dark red divine dragon waved his dragon claws, and he found that he could control the spiritual qi around him with his spiritual fire. This was something that could not be done in the tilted moon world. It's true. Lin Xian was also surprised. He found that the aura here was completely different from the tilted moon world. Chapter 1808. Heavens, I can actually absorb spiritual energy. And my suppressed cultivation has also recovered. Could it be that we've left the tilted moon mystic world? Everyone exclaimed as they realized that their surroundings were indeed different from the tilted moon mystic world. They were out. At this moment, many people looked up to the sky and cheered excitedly. They originally thought that they would be trapped in the tilted moon mystic world for the rest of their lives. Who knew that they would finally be able to leave? However, at this moment, a ray of light shot up into the sky. The Alcade sage turned into a ray of light and instantly rushed into the sky. Not only him but Yi Wudao and the Yi family also quickly left. Then Gu Santong and a few other sky prides also quickly left. Lin Xian and the dark red dragon also did not hesitate. He grabbed Lu Mingyue and put her back into the black earth. Then the two opened the profound jade platform and directly teleported. Boom. In the next moment, the powerful figures mercilessly attacked and quickly chased after Lin Xian, the Alcade sage and the others. However, they came up empty-handed. Lin Xian and the other young sky prides were very decisive and quickly escaped. He had narrowly escaped the attack. However, the powerful figures did not give up and quickly chased after them. Terrifying auras spread for thousands of miles, but soon the faces of these powerful figures turned green. This was because they realized that although they had left the tilted moon mystic world, they were near the entrance of the mystic world. There were a large number of peerless sages and elders of peerless sects there. Therefore, at this moment, their movements attracted the attention of those people. Soon, the Yi family and the Gu family quickly flew into the sky and protected the Alcade sage Gu Santong, Yi Wudao and the others. Not only that, the elders of the remote antiquity families and peerless holy lands roared angrily and killed those powerful figures. In an instant, an earth-shattering battle broke out. On the other side, Lin Xian and the dark red dragon used the profound jade platform to teleport continuously and completely left this area. One day later, the battle ended. The major forces rested and reorganized, and the strange things in the mystic world quickly spread. Those peerless sects, peerless holy lands and remote antiquity families were shocked when they learned about what had happened in the tilted moon mystic world. This was because they realized that there were not only primitive residents there, but also the mysterious White Bone City. It seemed that there was definitely an ancient secret. In an instant, the elders of the peerless holy lands and remote antiquity families. However, they discovered that the entrance had already been closed. Outsiders would not be able to open it unless a saint descended. However, such a person had not appeared for many years. So, it was impossible to force. While the remote antiquity families and peerless sacred grounds were trying to come up with a solution, the other sects were roaring furiously. This was because they realized that they had lost more than half of their disciples. They were all elite geniuses. Losing even one of them was enough to make them feel extremely pained, let alone now that all of them had fallen. Damn brat, don't let me find you. The experts of the Five Elements sect roared crazily. The experts who were heading towards the Holy Land were also filled with killing intent. They found out that their genius disciple Ouyang Feng was not killed by anyone. This made them extremely angry. However, the All Beginnings Holy Land was even more furious. They discovered that Lu Mingyue had disappeared. After asking around, they learned that Lu Mingyue had fought with someone in the Tilted Moon Mystic World and was captured. This made them feel dizzy. Some of them couldn't even bear it. One must know that they had nurtured Lu Mingyue as their saintess. Moreover, they had already decided that they would make her the saintess of the All Beginnings Holy Land as soon as she came out. But now, who would have thought that Lu Mingyue would be captured? They had already learned from other cultivators that it was a demon king who had taken action. Lu Mingyue was doomed to fall into the hands of such a person. Everyone take a look. Is it this person? An elder of the Wavering Light Holy Land took out a portrait. The portrait was of Lin Xian. That's right, it's him. Yes, it's this boy. Cries of alarm sounded. This kid is actually that Lin Xian who was previously on the wanted list? What? He also came in? Damn it. It's actually him. I didn't notice him at all. Countless roars sounded. To be honest, they hadn't noticed him at all. Even if they had noticed him, they wouldn't have cared. That was because the Tilted Moon Profound World had been sealed. Whether or not they could come out was another matter. There was no need for them to chase after Lin Xian for the bounty of the Wavering Light Holy Land. But now, things were different. They had already come out. The situation had taken a huge turn. Moreover, when the people of the All Beginnings Holy Land looked at Lin Xian's portrait, they gnashed their teeth in anger. They wished they could skin him alive. Find him. We must capture that boy. The people of the All Beginnings Holy Land were ferocious. The others were also preparing to search for Lin Xian. As for the Wavering Light Holy Land Saint's son, he released a shocking piece of news. Not only had Lin Xian appeared in the Tilted Moon Profound World, but Mo Chanchi had also appeared. This news caused everyone to be extremely shocked. Their expressions all turned unsightly. After all, Mo Chanchi was an exceptional expert. If he came out, not many of them would be able to contend against him. Unless they ganged up on him. Moreover, they had learned from the Wavering Light Holy Land Saint's son that Mo Chanchi had joined an organization called the Holy Hall. Holy Hall? Everyone frowned. They seemed to be pondering over this name. However, they discovered that they actually knew nothing about it. In the end, the people of the Wavering Light Holy Land decided to leave this place. After all, Mo Chanchi's matter was too important. They had to return and discuss this matter properly. The others also left quickly. Some returned to report this matter, while others prepared to capture Lin Xian. On the other side, Lin Xian finally managed to shake off the pursuit of the almighty experts and arrived at a nearby city. However, he soon discovered that there were people inquiring about him. It wasn't the people of the All Beginnings Holy Land. Instead, it was the people of the Jade Lake Holy Land and the Purple Afterglow Holy Land. Could it be Qiu'er and Qingqing? Lin Xian's heart shook. He knew that the two of them had officially joined the Jade Lake Holy Land and the Purple Afterglow Holy Land. Now these two holy lands were inquiring about him. It was very likely that they had received orders from Xinjingqiu and Murong Qingqing. Lin Xian probed around and discovered that there were no almighty experts following him. Therefore he decided to make contact with the people of these two holy lands. Sure enough, the people he had contacted told him that it was Xinjingqiu and Murong Qingqing who had given them orders. Originally, the two of them had been very anxious when they learned that Lin Xian was being pursued. Therefore they had hurriedly sent people to search for Lin Xian. However, they had never expected that Lin Xian would actually enter the Tilted Moon Profound World. He had been gone for almost a year. Chapter 1809. He had been gone for nearly a year. Murong Qingqing and Xinjingqiu hadn't been able to obtain any news, so they could only patiently search for her. They hadn't expected that they would finally find her. The people of the Jade Lake Sacred Ground quickly retreated because they informed Lin Xian that Xinjingqiu was currently at a critical juncture of her cultivation and couldn't come out. Therefore they returned to report the news. The people of the Purple Afterglow Holy Land said that Murong Qingqing was nearby. They quickly brought Lin Xian out of the city and headed to the next city. 2 days later, Lin Xian and Murong Qingqing met. Their eyes met, and the two of them sighed with emotion. Soon after, Lin Xian brought Murong Qingqing into the Black Earth vessel and did it with her. 3 days later, the two of them came out. Lin Xian and Murong Qingqing were strolling on the grassland. Murong Qingqing listened to Lin Xian's story of what he had experienced in the past year, and her face was filled with lingering fear. Fortunately, Lin Xian had come out. Otherwise, with the strangeness of the White Bone City and the Oblique Moon Mystic World, he might have been trapped inside for the rest of his life. You always make people worry. Murong Qingqing grumbled. Her eyes were filled with worry. Lin Xian laughed heartily. If other people knew that the Purple Afterglow Holy Land Saintess was worried about me, I wonder if those young geniuses would be heartbroken? That's right, Murong Qingqing had already become the Purple Afterglow Holy Land Saintess. Moreover, Lin Xian also knew that after Xinjingqiu came out, she would very likely become the Jade Lake Sacred Ground Saintess. They were all his women. Lin Xian was happy for them. At this time Murong Qingqing asked, "That's right, what do you plan to do with that Lu Mingyue?" "Well, I have to think about it carefully." Lin Xian's eyes flashed. The other party's status was also very special. If he could make good use of them, he might be able to obtain the All Beginnings Holy Land's support. Even though Lin Xian's strength was formidable right now, the forces behind him were simply too weak. He didn't have any sect or family to rely on. He could only rely on himself. If that was the case, it would be extremely dangerous for him to travel around the eastern wilderness. Therefore, he had to think of a way to rope in some forces. Now it seemed that with Murong Qingqing and Xinjingqiu, at least the Jade Lake Sacred Land and the Zixia Sacred Land would not be his enemy. It was even possible that they would lend a helping hand at certain times. Murong Qingqing said, "It's up to you how you want to use her. Even if you want to keep her, I won't object." When Lin Xian heard this, he was a little surprised. Then he muttered in his heart, "Is this a test?" In the next moment he chuckled mischievously and said, "How can that be? I already have you and Xiu. Why would I look for someone else?" Murong Qingqing also glared at Lin Xian with a faint smile. "Is that so? Who is Zhao Shui? Will you keep her?" Lin Xian was speechless. Murong Qingqing twirled her hair and said, "Don't worry. I won't be so petty. However, you have to remember one thing. You can't forget me and you can't let me down." Of course. Lin Xian's eyes were filled with warmth as he pulled her into his embrace. The two of them stayed together for a month. After that, Murong Qingqing returned to the Zixia Sacred Land. Lin Xian prepared to enter seclusion and cultivate. He had obtained many benefits in the Tilted Moon mystic world. His cultivation had increased greatly, and he had also comprehended some mysterious Tao patterns. He needed to properly digest all of this. Therefore he came to a mountain range and directly opened a cave. He laid down a sky full of array formations and then entered the black earth. This seclusion lasted for half a year. During this half a year, Lin Xian's cultivation had completely stabilized. Not only that, but he had also improved a lot and reached the late-stage 4-star king realm. Moreover, he had also made some progress in comprehending those Tao patterns. It could be said that his current strength had increased by a large margin. Lin Xian didn't continue cultivating. He felt that half a year was enough. Moreover, he wanted to go out and see what the situation was like outside. Inside the black earth, Lin Xian came out of seclusion and happened to see Lu Mingyue. Lu Mingyue was still wearing her blue dress and was extremely beautiful. However, her complexion was extremely ugly. This was because she had been imprisoned by Lin Xian for more than half a year. This made her feel like she was going crazy. According to the sect's agreement, she would become the All Beginnings Holy Land Saintess after she came out. She would become one of the most dazzling figures of the Eastern Wasteland's younger generation. But now all of this was gone. Not only that, but she had also become Lin Xian's servant. She couldn't accept this at all. Therefore, when she saw Lin Xian come out, she clenched her teeth and said, "Brat, I advise you to release me. Otherwise the All Beginnings Holy Land won't let you off." The All Beginnings Holy Land? It doesn't matter. I've already provoked the Wavering Light Holy Land. Adding another All Beginnings Holy Land doesn't matter. Provoked the Wavering Light Holy Land? Lu Mingyue was stunned. One had to know that Lin Xian had killed the people of the Four Symbols Holy Land and the Five Elements sect in the Oblique Moon mystic world. But now Lin Xian didn't mention these things and only mentioned the Wavering Light Holy Land. What? Lu Mingyue's eyes flickered. Soon, she recalled a piece of news she had heard before entering the Oblique Moon mystic world. In the next instant, her expression changed drastically. She pointed at Lin Xian and screamed, "You are that Lin Xian wanted by the Wavering Light Holy Land. Not bad. You actually guessed it. That's right, I am Lin Xian." "Damn brat, it's actually you?" Lu Mingyue was extremely shocked. She hadn't expected Lin Xian to have such an origin. But in the next instant she said in a deep voice, "Lin Xian, I advise you not to make a mistake. If you let me go, I guarantee that I won't make things difficult for you. Moreover, the All Beginnings Holy Land won't look for trouble with you." "Is that so? I'd be a fool if I believed you." Lin Xian sneered. He wasn't moved at all. Lu Mingyue's expression turned gloomy. "What will it take for you to let me go?" Lin Xian sat to the side and said faintly, "To be honest, I really wanted to train you into a maid. That's because I didn't expect to be able to leave the Oblique Moon mystic world so quickly. But now that I'm out, the situation is different. As a genius disciple of the All Beginnings Holy Land, you have the potential to become the Saintess. Now that you've been captured by me, it's a great humiliation to the All Beginnings Holy Land. I'm afraid that the other party wishes to kill me to vent his hatred. Therefore I can't let you live." "What? You dare to attack me?" Lu Mingyue tensed up. She subconsciously took 3 steps back. Her entire body tensed up. One must know that the other party had never planned to kill her before. This made her think that the other party was afraid of the All Beginnings Holy Land and didn't dare to kill her. But now she saw a trace of determination in the other party's eyes. It was clear that the other party was really going to attack her. Lu Mingyue's pupils shrank. She quickly tried to think of a way to prevent herself from being killed by the other party. You can't kill me. If you kill me, the All Beginnings Holy Land will definitely not let you off. Chapter 18:10. You can't kill me. If you kill me, the All Beginnings Holy Land will absolutely not let you off. Lin Xian shook his head. This reason won't do. Even if I don't kill you, the All Beginnings Holy Land will still find trouble with me. At this point, Lin Xian narrowed his eyes and continued, I can point you in the right direction. Why don't you become my maid and serve me? Perhaps I can spare your life if you do so. Lu Mingyue became even more nervous. Her palms even started to sweat. She knew what it meant to be a maid. It was different from serving tea and water. If she became a maid, not only would she have to serve tea and water, but she might even become a cultivation furnace for the other party. If that happened, she would be consigned to eternal damnation. Thus, she clenched her teeth and said, Don't even think about it. My husband must be an indomitable spirit that stands above all. Right now, you don't have the qualifications. Lu Mingyue said that her current situation was very dangerous. However, she also had her own pride. Among the younger generation, she was an incomparably dazzling existence. In her heart, her idols were those indomitable young heavenly prides who had the qualifications to become great emperors. In her opinion, although Lin Xian was powerful, he still didn't have the qualifications to do so. Haha, your ambitions aren't small. Lin Xian smiled, not caring at all. However, I am very curious. What conditions can you offer me to let you off? Lu Mingyue's eyes flickered as if she was making a final struggle. But at this time, the void suddenly shook and an extremely powerful explosion came from outside. Although the black earth wasn't damaged, Lin Xian could clearly sense the situation outside. Have we been discovered? Lin Xian frowned. This shouldn't be the case. He had arranged many array formations outside. Even an almighty being shouldn't have been able to discover him. But now, someone was actually bombarding the cave. This left him flabbergasted. Could it be that someone was fighting and accidentally affected this place? Lin Xian guessed. Soon, however, 2 more attacks landed on the black earth, causing the ship to shake violently. Someone really did discover us. Seeing this scene, Lin Xian's face darkened. He realized that the other party's target was clearly the black earth. In the next moment, he snorted coldly. His figure flashed and he appeared in the outside world. Then he saw that the entire mountain range had been blasted open, revealing more than half of the cracks. There were dozens of figures in front of him, completely surrounding this place. There was indeed someone. Lin Xian frowned. He walked out and asked in a deep voice, Who are you? Why did you destroy my cave? You're disturbing my cultivation? You're that Lin Xian? At this moment, a young man walked out from the front with a scroll in his hand. After comparing the two, he asked coldly, That's right, it's me. Lin Xian replied in a deep voice. If it's you, then it's easy. The young man sneered. Then he waved his hand. Shout out to the surrounding people. Take him down. Yes. When the kings heard this order, they all drew their swords and sabers. Terrifying auras surged from their bodies as they locked onto Lin Xian. Who are you? You actually dared to attack me? Lin Xian frowned. He didn't expect that the other party would come looking for trouble with him. Moreover, from the looks of it, they didn't seem to be people from the Wavering Light Holy Land. You dared to kill a disciple of my All Beginnings Holy Land? You're truly audacious. Today I'll capture you and bring you back to the sect. The young man coldly snorted, his expression ice-cold. All Beginnings Holy Land? Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. He was just talking about the All Beginnings Holy Land a moment ago. He didn't expect that the other party would come knocking on his door. Then the corners of his lips curled up. Your future saintess is still in my hands. Aren't you afraid that I'll kill her if you act rashly? Future saintess? The young man sneered. What future saintess? She was captured by you and became a prisoner. She has already lost the qualifications to become a saintess. If you want to kill her, then kill her. Even if you don't do anything, we will still kill her. Lin Xian frowned when he heard this heartless voice. Then he waved his hand and summoned Lu Mingyue from the black earth. Did you hear what I said? Lin Xian asked indifferently. Lu Mingyue didn't reply. However, her complexion was exceptionally gloomy. It was clear that she had heard everything. She stared at the other party and coldly asked, "What did you say? Say it again." "Ah, you slut, you really came out. I didn't expect you to still be alive." The young man sneered. "What did I say? Are you deaf? I'm here on the orders of the branch Holy Land to capture you and this brat. I'll kill you both." "Nonsense." Lu Mingyue coldly snorted. "I am the future all-beginning saintess. How could the sect kill me? How is that possible?" The young man sneered. "You no longer have the qualifications to become a saintess. The only one who can become a saintess is my elder sister." It was clear that the All-Beginnings Holy Land was the same as the other Holy Lands. Behind every official saintess were some reserve saintesses. Lu Mingyue was clearly one of the reserve saintesses. The elder sister of the young man should also be a reserve saintess. Originally, Lu Mingyue had the qualifications to become a true saintess. But now it seemed that she had been abandoned by the sect. As for the other party's elder sister, it was very likely that she would become a true saintess. Lu Mingyue naturally also thought of this. Thus, her complexion turned ice-cold. Her body even trembled in anger. She hadn't expected that the sect would abandon her and let another disciple become the all-beginning saintess. Not only that, but what made her feel even more despair was that the sect actually wanted to kill her. What? I don't understand. Lu Mingyue clenched her jade-like hands so tightly that her fingernails dug into her palms. It was clear that she couldn't accept this news. I, Lu Mingyue, entered the All-Beginnings Holy Land when I was 3 years old. I've been in the All-Beginnings Holy Land all these years. I've already treated it as my home. But now, the sect actually wants to kill me? Why is that? Lu Mingyue finally roared in anger. What? You are truly naive. A holy land wouldn't find someone with questionable chastity to become a saintess. Not to mention you're already someone else's prisoner. Who knows what the two of you have done? The young man looked down at Lu Mingyue. His eyes were filled with ridicule. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself. Serves you right. Who allowed you to enter the oblique moon mystic world for no reason? Moreover, if you're not strong enough, don't try to show off. Otherwise, you'll become someone else's prisoner. If I were you, I would have committed suicide long ago. I'll kill you. Lu Mingyue screamed in anger. Then, she thrust her jade-like hands forward and grabbed at the young man. Seeing this scene, the young man jumped in fright and hurriedly dodged. However, when he saw that Lu Mingyue was only putting on an act and didn't release any terrifying power from her body, he immediately threw his head back and roared with laughter. I'm dying of laughter. You want to kill me with just you alone? Don't forget that you're now a prisoner. The young man's eyes were filled with savagery. Save your strength. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.